Welcome to All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop streaming show. We are here again on August 30th, one of the last day of the last Friday in August. Summer is coming near an end. Labor Day weekend is upon us. Wow, the summer, where it has gone. We're here with co-host and creator of the show, uh, Ed Riley, and we are here talking about. Uh, I'm going to run down the thing what we have for tonight. Uh, and is both a tonight's show is a it's a perspective. This we're starting off with a perspective on the election. It is the day after Harris's first interview. Yay, right? Like for at least for those of you like me who are kind of definitely rooting one way. So is Ed Riley. But we're having a conversation with people who have different opinions and may approach this very different, right? Like so because we're Ed and I had to have a series of conversations with many people who are not feeling Harris, right? They're not like you say who you vote for, and they might not give you the answer that you are thinking. And we know that Trump is making a major play for black men. We believe that if he gets 25%, that will be major, and a lot of these races are very close. Uh, but we do know also demographically an overwhelming majority of black men are voting for Harris. But when we deal with these elections, the Democrats have to win with more than supermajorities of black people, black men and black women in order to win. And would need over supermajorities of black men to win. And the question would be, is 75% enough to put over the edge in a state like Georgia, where the vote is decided by like 12,000 votes, 10,000 votes, right? We've seen this in the elections for Senate. We've seen these also in the elections for the president. And we saw the Democrats win by very narrow numbers. We know when Stacey Abrams ran for the second time, she lost significantly by a significant margin. And that those are questions that have to be like talked about and answered, right? To see if uh, Harris would have a chance to flip the state, but the or not flip the state, but have the state turn Democratic. Ed, so that is the first conversation that we're going to have. We were going to have a local someone running for elected office in basically rural Georgia, but he was not able to make it tonight. But we will have Che Colter come on soon. Che Colter is a local Newark advocate. He is a Republican, and he will give us his views on that. He's not a MAGA Republican. He's not a mainstream. He's not a someone who is like extreme. So it might be very valuable in a conversation about Georgia, where there may be males there who are more conservative, but still could vote one way or the other. And then we also have Annette Alston, who is an activist in Newton County, and she'll talk about break down her perceptions of what's going on in Georgia for Harris. Harris was in Georgia all week long, and I wanted to get some Georgia perspectives on the race and what is it like to run in Georgia, that is a by and large conservative state that Stacey Abrams did a lot to turn purple, and it got conceivably Biden elected as president, got two senators, uh, Ostroff and Warnock, in, and did not was not able to get herself elected. So it helped out the Democrats, and unfortunately, she was not able to win in that rematch against Brian Kemp. And we're going to be talking about a little bit of that later as well. So, but after that, we're going to rerun an interview that we did with the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, and uh, and with the journalist from Public Square Amplified, Josie Gonsalves. She's an incredible journalist who set up a great opportunity to interview the prime minister after Hurricane Burl. Uh, we don't talk enough about global warming and climate change, and I think we have to. I think we should. I think we need to talk about what the stakes are. And there are many of us who have relatives in the Caribbean. Many of us have people we care about in many places in the world that are being destroyed, devastated by the change in climate. I think we need to have more of a conversation about it on a more regular basis. So we're replaying that interview at 7 p.m. And at 8:30, we're going to have DJ Rhino and the State of Hip Hop and Hakim Green. Hopefully, we'll come back to talk about the 24 hours of peace. So we have a full program. We have a lot that we're doing, and we hopefully it'll be informative and a good learning experience. Hey, Edman, how are you? Ed, I can't hear you. Your mic is on mute.
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just getting ready for the first day of school. As many people know, I'm a teacher, and we have to, get our rooms together. We painted our school was painted, so yay, right? Yay for fresh paint. But that means we have to really get our classrooms fully together again. All the stuff that was in the middle of the floor aside, all the other stuff. So, spent the last week just throwing a bunch of stuff out, going over stuff, getting the classroom nice. So at least part of it is just about done. I think the kids, when they come back on Tuesday, will be very happy with the wonderful classroom space that they're going to have.
Tuesday is the first day back.
For students, Tuesday is the first day back for students. Even the teachers were here since Tuesday, since last Tuesday.
Good, man. Good. So y'all had an opportunity though to warm the classes up for the students.
Yeah, warm them up, clean them up, dust them up, right? Uh,
Right.
Posterize, get stuff looking neat. So I don't think everything's going to be ready on time for the first day, but it's going to be ready enough, and it's going to look nice. It's going to smell nice. It's going to be cool. But there's still some stuff that we're going to do. We're going to have some of the kids participate in doing the bulletin boards and doing stuff like that. So
Right.
the
Right.
kids will have some part in it. Kids are great with technology, so they're going to be doing some help with, getting some pictures, made into the posters, as some kid showed me how to do before, and I was like, "We'll just send it to Staples, and they'll just print it out for you, and it'd be awesome." I'm like, "You're right, that's
Right.
nice." So I mean, so they are. As a teacher, you kind of want to wait till some of your kids get back for some of that last minute decoration stuff anyway, because they're gonna make it look better. They're creative, inventive. They know all of the latest technology way before you do, and they know how to use it. So you know, this is one of those instances where you, on a very consistent basis, need to just take a step back and learn from your kids.
Yep. Absolutely, man. For sure. But they painted the whole inside of science.
Every classroom, every closet,
Wow.
everything painted and brand new.
I need to see that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it looked fresh. It looked fresh, right? Like I think it's the first full painting of the entire building like that since for 20 years, since 2006 when we moved in. So
Wow.
it's the first time the entire building like that has gotten a fresh coat to look good, and so they
And
need to make it last for years.
and you've been in the building since it's open, right?
Yeah, 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 yep.
And so you've never seen it repainted. This is the first time.
Yeah, like when we moved in the building, it was a fresh paint. It was nice. And now it's fresh paint. It's nice. So the only thing that wasn't painted were the many murals that came up. We have an incredible art teacher who's an artist who happens to teach. Shout out to Terry Bruin, just an amazing artist, and a community artist that trains other artists and trains her students to be artists. And her and her students have done murals like all over the building, and they are literally community works of art that should be studied. They're
Yeah.
amazing.
I
And
gotta
you've
get.
seen them.
Yeah, yeah, I have. And I got to get by to see the building though, because I do remember when you first moved. I remember when we went to see your class when you first went there. You know what I mean?
Yep,
But how
yep,
long you
yep.
been teaching now, John?
Oh, this will be my 32nd year in the classroom.
Wow, incredible, man.
Yeah, this is my
Uh,
32nd year in the classroom. I know
Yeah.
when there was a teacher who was there, and I was like, she was like, "How many years have you been teaching?" I was like, 32. She was like, "You've been teaching for 32 years?"
Hmm.
And I was like, "Wait, I don't look like the vice president or the future vice president, right? Like I don't look like the I don't look like dude like him and Harris. Tim Walz is the same age as Harris. and you're just like, yo, they don't look the same, right? And
Yeah,
people could have made all these jokes about black don't crack and all that, but Tim Walz, he held it up. He was like, I had lunch duty for 20 years.
that's true.
I had cafeteria duty for 20 years. That's what it does to you. That's why teachers need a raise. It's funny, but I've been teaching for 32, and I did lose my hair, so
Yeah,
there's that.
yeah.
His hair is
That,
all white. My hair is all gone. So
so what? So it wasn't. So it wasn't by choice. It was by force, huh?
I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't know. Like in my 30s, the hair started going, right? And then, by the time it was the 40s, now it's kind of like, let it go, let it
yeah,
go. So I shave it up nice. It looks nice. Good. Black people often have bald heads that look good.
yeah.
So
That's
I don't look like I'm about to, take over the Capitol when when I shave my head.
that's
So I
Michael
guess
Jordan.
that's an advantage.
That was Michael Jordan's argument. He just said that when it started to go, he didn't want to have spots in his head, so
Right.
he decided to just shave it all off. You know what I mean?
Exactly, right? Like, there's no need for hair transplant. And
Yeah.
I had my time for hair. It was a
Well,
good time.
you
I
know,
remember the time, but
but you
that
know,
time is
you
over.
know now, John, you don't need a hair transplant. I mean, they actually got stuff that, like, I see these women now. They put glue in their head, and they actually could put something on your head where it looks like it's actual hair on your head, or they
Yeah,
draw
I
it
know. It didn't really work for LeBron that well. Like,
on
and
that.
maybe because he's working out and stuff, but like, yeah, like he just, yeah. Sometimes in the middle of a game, his hair comes off.
I didn't know
Just
that.
terrible.
I've
Just
never
terrible. Just
I didn't
terrible.
know that. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
you should just let it go. Let it go, LeBron. Let it go, man. Let it go.
Yeah, that's what people say about Roland Martin. They said that when is he going to let it go? Because it keep going further and further back, and he just got spots all over his head.
They're
I
like, how big is your forehead now, man? How big is your forehead? Just let it go, Martin. Just
exactly.
let it go. Let it go.
Yeah,
Wear a hat. Wear a hat. You can wear a hat.
yeah, that too. You know, but anyway, John, I know me and you had started having a conversation yesterday with Mitty, and one of the things we were talking about was this just this random poll that was taken on the train with some brothers who were having a conversation. They weren't even having a conversation with each other, to tell you the truth. It was just some other brothers who were having a conversation, and it just got pretty loud. And and from there they just decided, let's ask all of the other brothers on the train. And of course, I was one of the ones who said yes. And and out of the 12 black men that were on that train, 9 of them said no. You know what I mean? That they wouldn't vote Democratic. And so I didn't know whether they were independents or whether they were Republicans. you know so I mean, that's one of the things we're talking about. I think we just lost Jonathan, but what we were talking about is we were having this conversation on the train with some brothers, and I wasn't initially a part of the conversation that was being had. These brothers were having a random conversation about the election. They were talking about Harris and Trump, and the brothers were saying that they didn't necessarily trust Harris. And so the brothers were debating whether or not you know we could trust Trump. And it wasn't so much of whether they could trust Trump as much as it was that they just didn't like Harris, and they didn't like her for uh, what they were saying. Now, I don't know what evidence they had or what research they had done, but their claim was that they didn't like her for her prosecutorial record in California. So and I don't know if they really did any research as it related to what I'm talking about, John. Is just giving them a backdrop. So
Okay.
and I'm saying that the brothers, I don't know what research they had done as it related to her, and they were talking about her prosecutorial background in San Francisco and California. And so I'm not really sure if all of the brothers knew that, and what they really knew. But for most of the brothers on the train, they just said that they were not going to vote for Harris, or they were going to vote. They were not going to vote at all, and they were not going to vote for the Democratic ticket. So, you know,
Good evening, Principal Kafele. Always love having you on. I always love having the hearing from you on this, and it was a lot of fun doing your broadcast last week. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, man, and learned a lot as always. Your guests are amazing, and like the other guest, the other woman who was on from Los Angeles, amazing. It was on Principal Kafele's show last week, and that was awesome. That was a lot of fun.
good. I know you
Now,
knocked it out the park.
you said what?
I know you knocked it out the park, John.
It was a fun interview. It was a fun interview, and he's an incredible interviewer and educator who I absolutely respect. I have the guests that he has every week just to talk about education. And if you don't know about Principal Kafele's broadcast, you definitely have to look it up. If you're an educator, if you are someone who is in any form of education, if you're a principal, you need to definitely principal, assistant principal, educator. You need to check out his broadcast. You need to check him out. Jay, I know you are coming on soon. We hope to hear from you, man. We're in this conversation. So Ed, you're saying that on the train, a lot of people were just like, "Nah, I can't do it."
It wasn't a lot of people. It was really just, as I was saying, John, when we lost you, um, it was two or three brothers that initially were having a conversation, and the conversation just got pretty loud, and so the brothers just decided to do a random poll, because they were just saying that it wasn't just them. It was a lot of folks, they were saying, in their circles, their own independent circles, that didn't support Harris for their own reason. And it didn't seem to me, John, that they had an axe to grind with black women. It just seemed like it was just her in particular, right? uh and it seemed like they were talking more about her prosecutorial record. Although I've heard people say, and I didn't ask them this question, but I've heard people say that for most of the brothers, it really is about her white husband, right? That they just don't feel, that like we could support her, and because she's married to a white man. And that's what I heard on the real side. And I don't know.
Yeah, but the only thing about that, right? Like is, and which I don't understand is, but Trump.
Mhm.
Like if you're saying she was a prosecutor, don't understand, like prosecutor, she put black men in jail, got it, right? And you're like, oh, uh, I understand that only to mean that identity arguments aren't necessarily gonna matter. They're like, hey, vote for like Ras Baraka made very compelling arguments about why to support Harris at the men's meeting in Newark. He's mayor of Ras Baraka, if you don't know, mayor of Newark, and has men's meetings and has very much concentrated in having meetings with large groups of men so that they can be more financially okay, right? So that uh, they can be good within our communities. So he focuses and concentrates on black men, and he was like, "We've got to support Harris. Women have supported us. Black women have supported us. It's time for us to support them." And we're like, "Cool." But what you're saying, Ed, is that argument about identity isn't as persuasive to these men, right?
Right.
Uh, and let's get my Annette Alston, local Georgia activist, is on, and she's also my sister. I have to have a very politically active family, and it's always an honor to have her on.
What's up,
Many
Jeanette?
people.
An honor to be on. Thank you. Thank you, little brother.
So we're going to bring you in specifically in this context and the conversation in the context of Atlanta. But let's finish up that thought, Ed. When you were talking about the why this argument is not persuasive, you were talking about her having a white husband.
Mhm.
Is it because the argument, like, have arguments been made to them about like why the policies are better? Like Biden's policies, whether it be the Justice Department, whether it be the Office of Violence Prevention. I mean, there are a series of specific programs that were put in place, whether it's the aid to cities and states that cause cities not to go bankrupt. Like there's whether it be the stance on environment and environmental justice. There have been a series of things that the Biden administration done that have been very positive, right? And many specifically positive for Black people specifically. And the violence prevention piece was directly dealing with uh, Black men who are disproportionately affected by violence, right? Like the Justice Department put people in place who would have consent decrees that deal with police violence that is disproportionately against Black men. So, like on those issues, it seems like there has been a concerted effort on policy for the Biden Harris administration to try to answer them. And do you think that that is a more persuasive tact than than like what the mayor said, which is like Black women have supported us. It is time for us to support them.
Yeah, the thing is, John, it didn't seem to me that they were having a policy conversation, right? Because I think what you know, what I was hearing was is the brothers, as I told you, it seemed like the first three brothers before they did the random poll, the first three brothers is really just talking about what they heard, right? It didn't seem to me like they had done any research. Didn't seem to me like they had really talked to people who really knew what her prosecutorial record was, but that they sort of heard from each other through the grapevine that she had locked Black men up, that she had damaged families out in California, and so they weren't really having a policy conversation.
It was
And
much more of a, hey, she's not like us kind of
yeah,
conversation.
and again, it didn't sound like it was an attack on Black women. It just seemed like it was her. It was just seemed like we just don't like her. She just seems phony. She doesn't seem for real. And then they brought up Stacey Abrams in the conversation, right? One of the brothers was reminding folks that it was between her and Stacey Abrams as the candidate for Joe Biden, and that it got down to the point where it was about who was prettier, right? Where C prettier was Stacey Abrams prettier, and so you know they were saying that she didn't necessarily get along with the Biden family initially because she had attacked Biden when they were debating. So there were a lot of issues that the brothers were bringing up on the train, and then one of the brothers said, the truth is people got problems with her husband. Like he's not Black, he's not really from our community, and the question is how committed is she to Black people? And that was that. And then the brother just said, you know what? Let's just ask some of the other brothers on the train, what do they think? I mean, about the election. Will they vote for her? So those three brothers were in that dialogue. That was the conversation they were having. And then randomly, they just asked folks, if you are you going to vote, and then two, would you support Harris? And it was 12 of us on that train, 12 Black men, and three Black men on that train said yes, and nine said no.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was
Now,
a random poll.
and that's not, and not that that's scientific, right? Like, but Biden. I mean, Harris is expected to get like close to 80%. The lowest anyone's projecting is she would get 75% of the Black male vote, right? But I mean, that's a landslide and it's higher than any other. Like if she gets 75% of the black male vote, that's still higher than any other demographic beside black women, right? So that's higher than Latino women, white women, Asian women, right? It's definitely higher than white women, higher than white men, and all other groups of men, dynamics of men. But even though it'll be higher than all of those other demographics in a landslide, it's not what the Democrats need. That may put Georgia up in play, right?
Mhm.
Like even if it's as high as 75%, which is just crazy through the numbers, right? It might not be high enough.
Right.
Now, Annette
And,
Alston, you are an activist in Georgia. I know that you are going to be doing some volunteer stuff for the campaign at some point. I know that you have done that in the past with various candidates. Um, what is it looking like to you? Do you find that more black men are just pushing back than you would have expected? What are your conversations like there?
Well, okay, so thank you for inviting me on. I am feeling my way around Georgia because I've been in Georgia a few years, but I'm still connected to New Jersey in a lot of ways. Um, and in fact, I'm part of the Essex County Civic Club still, and which is connected to the New Jersey Federation of Colored Women's Clubs. Um, we are actually working on uh, a get out the vote for the national registration, voter registration day on September 17th. And I'm connecting it with Georgia and I'm connecting it with some clubs in Georgia as well. So we have the New
And
Jersey
in
Federation.
Georgia but I'm saying in Georgia would be the most important. It's the swing state,
It
and we know it's going
is.
to be
It is.
decided by 12 votes.
It is. And let me just finish saying this. This is a national effort. So I brought up New Jersey because I'm from New Jersey. We have connections there, and the president of the state, who is now the president of the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs, she was just elected to that position. She has connected me with some of the clubs in the Georgia area, and we are going to do something together. We're going to kind of, work off of something to kind of support each other for September 17th and on. Now, in terms of, I haven't gotten the kind of resistance with Harris that Ed mentions that he got on the train in terms of voting for Harris here yet. But I don't think I've been out there enough. I'm sure I would probably run into it because, there was Abrams did not get in. She did not become governor of the state. She should have. And it was due in part to a lot of things. I can't say that it was because Black men didn't come out and vote for her. I mean, I think it was a number of different factors in terms of Abrams, but I don't think that she got the kind of support from Black men that she probably should have. And when I hear Ed talk about some of the reasons or some of the concerns that the Black men on the train had, it concerns me because I'm thinking, okay, are we that shallow that we're looking at how pretty somebody is? Like, what does that have to do?
I think that was saying that I think Ed was saying that they wanted Stacey Abrams and were mad that she wasn't chosen. Is that what you were saying?
exactly. Right. People.
That she wasn't chosen to be the vice
Vice
president.
president.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here's the thing on that. I mean, I wasn't crazy about Kamala initially either, and a lot of people weren't because of the her her time as a prosecutor and everything that comes with that, right? But I think that we've had 4 years to get to know her, and 4 years to kind of get to know what she's really about. And I think that to me, she's proven herself. And so I think we need to get past that, and we need to see who she's actually running against. And we need to really focus on what happens if Trump gets in there. I mean, I think people really need to look at the policies that she's putting forth and the junk that Trump is putting out there. The 2025 thing that he's trying to separate himself from, but he doesn't have anything else he's talking about that you can actually believe him, because he lies constantly. So it's really to me, it's like not even apples and oranges. It's like apples and lemons or something, or celery or something. I don't know. It's just there's no comparison. So I don't know. I'm all over the place, and I apologize. But
no, I think some of what you just said is important, particularly when you said look at who she's running against.
Right. I mean, I think we need to focus. We need to put the eyes on the prize and focus on what is important here, and which world you want to live in. Do you want to live in the world with the policies that Harris is putting forth, or do you want to go with what Trump is throwing out there? And really, I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer, but I don't know. But we're doing everything on our end in Georgia. There's a lot of excitement out there, and I hope it's enough, to get people out to vote. I spoke to a young lady today. It was hard. I didn't know what to say in this situation. There are some people who just don't vote because it's against their religion. So if I was speaking to an adult, I mean, well, she's in college. She's technically an adult, but I needed to back off. I didn't want to, because when someone says it's against my religion, I kind of,
what religion
I don't know
was
what
that?
to say to that, because you don't want to say anything that's going to,
What is her
she has the
religion?
right, it's her religion, and I can't say anything about that. Now, if
What was her religion?
It's it's not it's like men what's the I can't think of the name. It's like one of the Christian like almost like Amish, but not Amish. Is black. They're black. I can't think of the name of it. There's a name.
It might be better off because she might not vote the way you want. So depending on, like, if they're like, hey, my religion says I don't vote, that might not be the person you want to vote. So let's move on to the next.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm just saying there are a lot of people that are not necessary. There are some people that are just either not going to vote, and I don't know. The religion is playing into this too, because there are people who are pro-life, so to speak, right? But that's
not anymore.
Confusing. That's a weird thing, because it's like, okay, how are you pro-life? Like, how are you thinking that the Republicans are actually pro-life when they're for everything that they stand for is against life? Really. They're not about supporting the mother who has the baby that comes into this world and giving them additional support. They're not about child care, and making sure that the kids, the children can go to school, have daycare, etc. They're not about providing additional support for parents, but they call themselves pro-life. So, and then you have the other end that's not for women even having the IBF treatments. Did I say that correctly? I know I'm messing up. With the
IVF, like in vitro fertilization.
right, in vitro fertilization. Thank you, IVF.
Well, most Republicans are actually for that. Right?
Yeah, but
most. Like even Trump came out, he was like, I want to make it easier for it to happen because he's running scared.
But who can believe him? Who can believe him?
But at least he's saying I'm not pro. He's basically telling them I'm not pro-choice anymore. I mean, he's saying I'm not pro-life anymore. I'm not pro-life.
Okay, so all the people who got onto the Supreme Court, that he put on the Supreme Court, said that they would not ever get rid of Roe versus Wade. Okay,
they said that.
They clearly lied. Just like Trump is probably lying right now.
Which is why evangelicals are believing in his lies. It's weird. They're like, he said he's not. He said that he is he said he's not pro-life anymore. He said he just wants to leave it to the states, and whatever they decide is great. Whatever they decide is awesome. It's on them. And then they're like, wait, he's now pro-choice. Each state can choose. And yes, that's where he is for them.
For now, until he gets in. Okay.
Well, unless it's popular. I think that with that, I think that there are a lot of women who are just like, there are a lot of women who are like, I think that ultimately women will decide whether abortion is legal or not in any state because they're the overwhelming majority. Like the overwhelming majority of voters in each state are women. Women are deciding this. In conservative states, there are women who are like, the white women are like, nope, you're not taking away my right to choose. And they're kicking it back, right? Like they're doing what they do.
But the problem with that, though, Austin, is that was what people thought when Hillary ran, right? They thought that white women somehow would support the white woman. And that is the same thing that they also, right. That's also the same thing that they thought in Georgia with Stacey Abrams, right? And remember, it was Tamika Mallory who came on the show. He came on All Politics Are Local and told us that she'd actually reached out directly to those guys in Brooklyn. And she was telling them that they were spending way too much money, right, going after the white female vote. And even here, John, at this point, I hear that. But the evidence suggests that white women in the end will support their Republican husbands.
Well, what I was talking about a different issue. I was talking about white women who want to be pro-choice, right? Like in Kansas, Republican white women were like, "You're not taking away my right to abortion," and they voted so that Kansas couldn't make that law. Like a lot of states are already having referendums, right? So white women who are conservative in conservative states support the conservative candidate. Yes, absolutely, majority will. But they also make that break when you're talking about the issue of abortion and why the issue of abortion, what it means. I think that in every state, the states where white women want to have an abortion, they'll vote for it. The states where white women don't want to have an abortion, they'll vote against it. Ultimately, this is going to be decided by white women in these states.
But here's the thing, though. I think that women, even women who were pro-life, right, got a taste of what that looks like, whereas they didn't have that before Roe versus Wade was gotten rid of. I considered myself pro-life, not because I wanted people's choices taken away from them. It's just that I didn't believe, and I still don't like abortion or the idea of abortion. But I understand that it's, a woman's choice, and there are certain situations where it may be necessary. My only thing was just recognize it's not a blob of flesh; it's actually a person inside a person. That was my only thing, and that's me personally. But I still, seeing what happened after Roe versus Wade was gotten rid of, it kind of shines a light on everything, and you see a light bulb go off and you realize, okay, these people are crazy. You're really going to force a 10-year-old to have a baby who's been raped. You're going to really force
That was Ohio, right?
this woman to carry a baby that has no chance of life or is actually dead inside her. I mean, when you see these insane situations that are coming up, it kind of wakes you up and you say, okay, we need to get Roe versus Wade back. We need to get, women need to really have choices, because men are insane. They're totally insane when it comes to women's bodies. They are clueless.
Well, some men.
Yeah. I'm just saying, the ones that are making these rules, laws, right, and trying to, and have put us in this situation. Yes, some men.
And that's why I think that we have to be careful, right? And how says it too. We've got to be careful that it doesn't become men against women, right? Mm-hmm. And we have to be careful with that, particularly because there are people who are making calculated decisions, right, about how they want to, particularly with Black women, who they want to hire and who they don't want to hire, right? And I mean, I've got a business partner that I do business with, and he particularly says, I would rather hire Black women than Black men. Why? Because I don't want any pushback from Black men. I don't get any pushback from Black women, right? And so we have to be careful that those people who are enemy of both of us don't turn us against each other, right? We have to be careful when we have that argument, or have that discussion with one another. Because I know for a fact, I support my Black wife, I support my Black mother, right? I support my Black sisters, I support them. But I also understand the world I live in, where people can manipulate all of us, right? Mm-hmm. Based on resources, right? And then particularly when you start talking about, those of us who have and those of us who don't have, because it becomes a class issue, right? It becomes about class, and particularly if you talk about Georgia, right? And Hawk, we were having this conversation yesterday with Mitty, right? Have you seen that tweet by Waka Flocka Flames? Right, so he's a complete idiot to me, right? But so he was having this discussion, and and he was saying he's supporting Trump, and then he went into why he's supporting Trump, and and this whole thing, and then they talked about the amount of votes that Trump need, that Waka can actually supply those votes in Georgia, right? With the folks who believe and think like he thinks, to support Trump. To win Georgia. I mean, absolutely insane, right? But one of the things that Mitty brought up to us was, and it's true, and we might not want to admit it, but if we look at it, what Black men like about Trump is that he's defying the legal system, right? With all of these different felonies that he got, and all of that, and this bravado and so forth. Not that he give a damn about our community or he give a damn about them brothers, right? But to them, that looks like strength, right? Looks like, he got this bravado, but they don't see the racism and white supremacy that is at play, right?
Yeah. They're ignoring it. They're ignoring it because it's in everybody's face.
Right. It really
being
is.
Taken out of the schools, courtesy of Richard Nixon in the 70s, after the Civil Rights movement was successful in, getting the Voting Rights Act passed, civil rights legislation passed in the 60s. The pushback was, well, let's make these people ignorant of how to actually utilize the system. And, I've detailed at length about how I was a victim of the misinformation and the miseducation in that regard, and having, certain pieces of information that rang true, but, not being able to see the bigger picture, like you just mentioned, or the fine points that lead you to the bigger picture, not having all that in order. I think the Waka Flocka Flames and people coming from the sovereignty movement that exists in America, the conspiracy theory movement that exists in America, the idea that we're all 13th and 14th Amendment slaves. It's a lot of misinformation, a lot of misunderstanding of what actually is a citizen and how citizens can actualize their power. Donald Trump and the folks that he surrounded himself with represent all of that misinformation and miseducation. So a lot of the folks that rock with Donald Trump aren't actually registered to vote and have no intention in voting. Intention of voting. There's the and
if he only knew that, if he only knew that.
No disrespect to the Moorish community, but you got this whole thing with the all capital letter name is your real name. I mean, is the all capital letter name is the corporate fiction that exists, that your real name is capital letter and the lowercase letter. It's a whole bunch of stuff that you can get out of paying taxes by creating, returning yourself to your sovereign self, and then you create an offshore account, so you're not actually a citizen of the United States. It's a whole ruse being played on us, which really just gets us to abdicate our real power on local and national politics. And that they're using because I got friends who are Republican, and they've been working me for since before Trump. They've been working me. Right. And I was kind of because I'm the conspiracy theorist Don Dada. I know them all, right? So I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and then there's certain things that happened to me that kind of woke me up. And then when I put the wall up on these jokers, nah, I'm not dealing with you. If you supporting Donald Trump, if you rocking with that dude, you can't be for the benefit of Black and brown people. Get out of here. So
I actually canceled an appointment with one of my doctors. We got into a conversation. I was a chiropractor. I went in there, and I don't know. I don't know why she felt compelled. And this was a sister, okay? I don't know why she felt compelled to start talking about Kamala and how she wasn't going to vote for her and blah, blah, blah. And I listened. I didn't say anything. And then I said, "But you're not voting for Trump, are you?" She said, "Yeah, I'm voting for Trump." Da, 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 da. And I was like, oh, God. So it got real heated. That's all I got to say. Because I think we missed all that. Understand the rationale at all. I said, whatever you think issues you have with Kamala, for you to say that you're going to vote for Trump, okay, who represents everything that we are basically against. I couldn't fathom it. I didn't understand it, and I canceled my appointment with her, and I will never go back there again. So it's just but it's just, you get to see where people really are in this, and I really do not understand the rationale for someone voting for Trump in light of the racism, in light of the lies. You can't even keep track of the lies, and in light of this man can't say I'm sorry. He can't apologize for something that he knows was blatantly wrong. Recent example is his moment in Arlington Cemetery the other day, where one of his aides pushed this woman who was just doing her job and saying, "Look, you're not supposed to be taking pictures over here. In section 60, this is off limits for that activity." And instead of apologizing, instead of saying, "Hey, one of our aides went overboard and whatever," he could have, they started calling the aide that came out there names. They basically said that she was deranged, and that sort of thing. Oh, he didn't know the rules and all of this, instead of just saying, "I'm sorry." He's never said I'm sorry for anything he's done. He's never.
That what you just talked about is a political strategy. Was it Roy Cohn? Roy Cohen, the the old mob lawyer who was general counsel for Joe McCarthy.
Cohen.
Back in the, Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
Cohen. Yeah. Like the whole accuse. Mm-hmm. Never apologize for anything. Mm-hmm. Double down on the lie. The bigger the lie, the more fantastic the lie, the more likely people are to believe it. Mm-hmm. All of these are like strategies that they use.
It is.
We got to dig into that to really understand where Trump is coming from. Him being, of course, mentored by this guy Cohen, Nixon,
who is basically evil. I mean, when you hear the whole story behind, I didn't even know the whole story behind Cohen and everything. And
I wanted to get this more toward Georgia and the fact that like he is getting people to support him, and maybe not to demonize the people supporting him, but to figure out why, right? And to figure out like, and especially with that the numbers of Black men I hear talking about it. However, I just looked up the exit poll numbers for Stacey Abrams, and she got overwhelming Black vote, right? She got 90% of the Black vote, which means she got an astronomical number of Black men voting for her. The demographic, I mean, these are from the exit polls.
That's right.
And it really just says that white people just didn't vote for her.
Right.
Like she only got 25% of the white vote, and which is why she lost. And she, so I think that to some extent it was a myth. And that's why I always say that when people are like when the people are like Black men are the cause of Stacey Abrams losing.
No.
Right.
That's definitely not true.
Right, because the numbers don't show it, right?
Right.
The numbers show that they came out like that.
And we have to ask Jonathan, why did those white women around her create that? Why did they do that? Why?
What do you mean?
Fear of a black planet, brother.
Those Black
like all the stories that came out. There were a lot of stories that came out before the election in 2022 with Abrams that said that she had serious problems with Black men, which might have been true, right? Because they were speculating and they were looking at polls about like Black men not supporting her. But as I said, we always have to look at this in context. Having a problem with Black men means that you're getting 75% of them as opposed to 85 to 90%, right? If you get over 60%, it's a landslide. But if there are high numbers of people who are like, hey, I think I'm going to go the other way, if the number just gets it down to 75%, that seems like it could be a problem for them. So the question really is, if we perceive, because I do perceive, and we were talking about there are more Black men than normal who are like, no, I'm not voting, right? And so I don't want to conflate that with the blaming of a majority of Black men for like wanting to be like Trump or wanting to be white supremacists, et cetera. We're actually talking about a small number of people who have been voting overwhelmingly one way. And the only reason why I think that this is really important is because this becomes potentially the difference between winning and losing Georgia, right? Like voter turnout in Georgia. A lot of it isn't even in the way they vote. It is the level of turnout, excitement, etc. And stuff that we've heard. One question I have for you.
Can I say this though?
Sure.
In terms of the election between Stacey Abrams and Kemp, a lot of white people liked Kemp, okay, which was different from Trump. A lot of white people are having some issues with Trump, especially since he attacked Kemp and attacked the voting process and all that. I think that you have people that voted for Kemp that would not be able to vote for Trump. You have
including
that
Kemp's own wife.
You had for the Senator
Warnock and Herschel
Warnock. I mean, you had white people come out for Warnock because they could not fathom voting for the other guy, who was basically a clown. I mean, they couldn't see themselves voting for that person. I think
You talk about the former football player.
yeah, the right, whose
Herschel
name
Walker.
I can't think of right
Right,
now.
Herschel Walker.
But Herschel Walker, thank you. Herschel Walker and Trump are in the same ilk. So you have some of the same people, white people, Republicans, that are going to come out for Kamala like they did for Warnock, because they can't fathom voting for Trump. So you have two different types of races, if you will. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So,
And let me
add on real quick.
Go
ahead. A lot of social media has a lot to do with our perceived pushback on Kamala and supposed support of Trump. And social media is fugazi in a lot of ways. A lot of those folks aren't registered to vote, have no intention on voting. They're not going to vote. And I think example of that is what happened earlier this year when there was Trump was supposed to, the brother in Atlanta who had the barbershop, and he had some of the Black Republican leadership in his barbershop to kind of, and then Trump called in and he got Trump on the phone, and the backlash was immediate and swift. And the very next day, the brother was like, yo, they're boycotting my barbershop. I messed up. I'm sorry. They didn't give me the full picture. So it was like, he did this event pandering to the Republican Party, Black Republicans, but the overwhelming majority of that community was like, no, brother, if you keep going, we're going to shut you down. That kind of gives us the real truth about where Atlanta, DeKalb County, Fulton County, what they really feel, women and men. So
that's right. And what's important about that, Hawk, is that, when Tamika was telling those white women that, they needed to tone that conversation down, Annette, with saying that Black women wouldn't support Abrams, they kept going in that direction. And I don't know why.
You're talking about Black men not supporting Abrams.
Yeah, not supporting Abrams. And as John just gave the facts, that wasn't true.
That wasn't true. I mean, sure, more Black women proportionally voted for her than Black men, but it was still an overwhelming number of Black people overall that voted. So,
like when it's 90%, when it's a total of 90%, that means the numbers of Black women and Black women are overwhelming. And if you're not making if you're not making that critique against white women, Latino women, Asian women, who all vote in lower numbers than Black men or who all voted in higher numbers for Trump than Black men, right? Like, so if you're not talking about Asian women, if you're not talking about white women, if you're talking about this gendered language and attacking Black men, and you're not talking like the women and men of every other demographic group, and you're making these pathological claims, then I think that's telling. However, I do think there's something though. Yes,
I will say though that when Hillary Clinton lost, there were a lot of people looking at white women who basically let her down, and they noted that basically white women did not come out.
Well, that was because the numbers were clear, right? They did that after the election, and after the election, they still blamed Black men. They blamed Black women and Black men until people pointed out the voting numbers, because the Black men who did not vote for it, they were like, Black men don't support women, and it was it was something along close to 80% voted for Hillary Clinton, like 80% voted for Hillary Clinton, and 8% voted for Jill Stein. So you had 88% of Black men vote for the female candidate, yet it was like, oh no, but Black men hate women. And I'm like,
the nuance that gets lost in that is Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. More people voted for Hillary than Donald Trump. How they get us is the Electoral College. And when we start factoring in, Bible Belt, Midwest, these Republican strongholds where, white women are going to follow the lead of their husbands. It's hard for them to divorce themselves from their husband's politics. It's like, it's not as easy as, white women let us down. Well, what white women let us down? Where do they live?
Right.
What was the skin in the game for them that led them to vote for Donald Trump instead of Hillary Clinton? Like it's the Clinton baggage, so to speak. It's it's a lot of different ways of cutting that cake. That's not as simple as this group didn't come out, that group didn't come out. Because she won the popular vote, and if not for the Electoral College, she would have been the president of the United States of America. And then Lady D says black men's experience in America has not been as bad as black women. So I was born of a black woman. I was raised by a black woman, single parent. Whatever my mother went through, I went through too. We go through it differently. Gender has something to do with it. Generation has something to do with it, no doubt. But I think we do ourselves a disservice when we divide our experience. Like, we are actually one. We need each other. Black women go through things. Black men go through the same things black women go through, just in a different way. Black men go through things. Black men have mothers. Black men have wives. Black men have sisters. Black men have daughters. Our experiences, though slightly different, are connected. So I just think we got to be careful.
But I do want to say, but I do want to say that I think that there may be something with, and I don't know if it translates into votes, right? But I do know that there's a lot of angst, and there's a lot more like, it doesn't matter. I think there's a lot more potential nihilism among black men. I think that there is like a way of looking at politics of being excluded. And I don't know if this translates into votes. I don't know if it will be seen at the polls or just in lack of enthusiasm. Because some of the conversation is given the disparity in education, right? And we know, like, again, the white supremacy works differently on black men and black women, but we have to acknowledge where this difference comes in, as in like educational attainment. Black men attain educational achievement at lower rates. They are suspended more, expelled from school more, etc. They are incarcerated more. And when we get into all these dating conversations around like, well, why aren't there enough eligible black men? Why is there a disparity, right? Like, the reason for the disparity is the white supremacy that's been like targeting black men in particular ways. And so you have a lot more educated black women than black men within our community. And that's just true. We know this is true, right? And I think that there is a potential for a lot of class-based angst. One thing I've asked to various black women, and I asked to your wife yesterday, and that was and I think that this may be an issue in certain states among the margins, right? Again, I think the majority of black men are going to vote one way, but I think the Democratic strategy is rooted in an overwhelming majority of black people voting a particular way, which is the only reason why we're talking about this, right? It's not like there are black men who are pathological or whatever. No, it's just the Democrats' winning strategy is disproportionate. Like, you got to get like in the 90% on both, right? Which takes a certain level of love. It takes a certain level of identification, right? It's not just a regular political decision. This is one where the culture's on the line, right? We don't want, like, there has to be something extra to get above like 60% or vote, right? There's gonna be fear or love or something like that. That's got to drive those numbers higher. And I think that to some extent, what we hear as a pushback is, like, when the mayor of Newark, Ras Baraka, made the argument that black women have been supporting us all our lives, we need to support black women now. The reason why to many people that we talked to that wasn't persuasive was because I think that particular candidate has to deal with a small segment. If they want that extra votes, right? You have to deal with that small segment that says, you incarcerated black men but married a white one, right? Which has the undercurrent of, you want me to vote for you.
That's so crazy.
Right. But you want to vote for me for identity politics reasons. And if it's for identity politics, well, I don't identify with you like that. I think that if it's about policy, like, I think Biden-Harris policy has been extremely good specifically with issues that deal with Black men, like the Office of Violence Prevention, that federal Office of Violence Prevention, which mirrors things off of the local offices of violence prevention, like that are in Newark and other cities, that specifically lower the rates of violence that are disproportionately suffered by Black men. You deal with like things. So I think that there are multiple issues, right? Like that have been specifically, right, like policies that have been good, whether the infusion of money into cities and states that helped, right, create cities that didn't have budget crises, right, like we used to in education or in city government, right? Like, so there were a series of things that I think were done very specifically with that when we deal with police brutality and consent decrees. I think that the Justice Department under Biden-Harris was a Justice Department that dealt and took seriously issues of police brutality and pushed different communities to have different responses on it. And again, these disproportionately affect Black men, but they don't really have an advocate who's saying, like, the whole convention happened and none of this stuff came out, right? So I think that the identity argument of vote for her because she's a Black woman, I think that rings hollow because it's not, for example, Annette Alston, real question. If Obama had a white wife, would you have been as enthusiastic a vote for him?
And see, it's a different. Okay, so I'm going to be honest and say, no, I would not have been as enthusiastic about it, but it's a different dynamic. I mean, I'm serious. Black women have had it kind of rough in terms of finding Black men to marry, to have lifelong partners. There are a lot of single, I'm one of them, Black women. I'm 62 years old, have not found that person. Thought I did a couple of times, but did not. And it's rough. It's really, 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 really.
How many really?
And I think that part of it has to do with the fact that, you know, you do have more educated Black women than you do Black men. So the pickings are fewer, okay? You have so many Black men that have been incarcerated or are incarcerated. Again, that's fewer Black men. And then you have a lot of Black men that have not been raised with in two-parent households, may not have been raised with a father, don't know certain basic things in terms of how to treat a woman. And it's not all Black men, okay? I'm just saying it's just fewer Black men. And so it's...
But I think we're saying almost the same thing with different implications, right? Like all I'm saying with this is the identity-based arguments aren't effective. Like what you said was just basically there's a reason for it.
Let me finish this out too. Let me just say this. In terms of identity politics, she has not been playing that.
She has not.
Okay, at all. And she really has been focused on the policies, what she wants to do for this country. She's like, I'm beyond that. I'm past that. This is not about me being a Black woman, an Indian woman, you know, it's none of East Indian, none of that is what I'm talking about right now. Yes, that's who I am. It's part of who I am. And it probably plays into some of the thinking that's going on in terms of equality, equity, and all of that, because I've seen it. I know what should be because of who I am, but I'm not throwing that out there. I'm not,
but what I'm saying is that, but I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying that's part of the argument I'm making, right? Part of it is if you're not specifically addressing the specific needs of a demographic group and the perception is that you don't care, the question is, well, what are you going to do, right? And if you're not specifically talking about those things, that you have done. Like, I think she can make the argument that the Biden-Harris administration has specifically addressed those needs and has done that. I just think that she, one, needs someone who can do that, right? If she doesn't want to do it herself, she needs a surrogate. I think Ras Baraka, the mayor of Newark, should be a surrogate because he's done things in Newark that have been directly helped, connected to federal policy of the Biden-Harris administration, right? Like I think it's a no-brainer. I think he should have been speaking at the convention. I think he should have been part of the rollout. I think the argument is there. They're not making it. And when people, and even the mayor, when he made his argument about Black women have been supporting us for years, and it's time for us to support them, I'm saying that that might not have been the most effective argument, only in that there are a lot of Black men who have that question. But if you're talking about, no, this is specifically what Biden-Harris did, that was actually great for Black males, much better than, like, if you're talking about the Justice Department and dealing with police brutality in a way that Jeff Sessions would not, right? Like, I think that those are far more successful at being able to do that. I think they can make the argument. I think they need to make that argument in terms of Black men, because they're gonna have, like, everything you're talking about. If it gets into identity, she loses. If, like, she loses us, right? Like, I think she loses Black males because they're like, well, I mean, it would be the same thing as
losing Black women.
Because
right, and especially over her marrying a white man.
But it's not. We're talking about with politics. It's an impression, right? So if the impression is you lock up Black men and marry a white one, it's an impression. It doesn't have to be based on reality.
Not just, let me just say this: it's not just a white man. This is a white man who, I mean, has put his life aside, changed certain things in his life, has shown, I mean, just really shown how much he truly loves her. And I'm not
I'm just saying that if Becky was amazing, if Obama had married an amazing Becky, you'd have been
you wouldn't be able to do what you just did. You wouldn't be able to do.
Many Black women out there.
We're not talking about we talk about he gave you a specific.
Because it's
can I say something?
Apples and oranges.
No, we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're talking about if Barack Obama was running for president and had a white wife, would you be able to support him? And your reaction,
or as enthusiastic?
And what I'm saying,
she would have supported him, but maybe not as enthusiastic.
Saying is, I'm not saying I wouldn't have supported him. I'm just saying I probably would have been a little not as excited. And I'm gonna tell you why.
But hold on, let me please. What you just did with Kamala in support of Kamala and her husband was very rational and very honorable of you to do. That's the right way to do it. And you should be able to do it in the same way if the roles were reversed.
No. And I'm going to tell you why. And you're not letting me finish.
Okay.
The reason why, and a lot of, I mean, some people are going to disagree with me. I don't really care. The fact of the matter is there are so many more, you don't see a lot of Black men, single Black men that are single because they want to, I mean, I'm just saying, there are so many more Black women out there that would have loved to have had a relationship, a lifelong relationship with a man, Black man, and haven't been able to do that. And there may be a lot of reasons for that, but I'm just saying there are too many educated, beautiful, spiritual, beautiful.
Right, but the
women to say, okay, all these Black women out here, and you had to pick a white woman.
No.
Okay. Whereas with Black women,
all these fantastic Black men out here, she had to pick a white man.
Well,
she did date a lot of Black men.
Right, but see, all right, so
let me just say this. Let me just say this. She didn't have to, but apparently that person who came into her life, I mean, and you can't, came into
I'm not judging her. I'm not judging her for it.
Neither am I, right? Like,
you're not judging her for it.
A long time to get married. Like, how old is she?
Let me make this
It's not like she married him when she was like 20 something.
No. But the thing is, it's not about defense of Kamala.
Let me make this clear. Yeah, let me make this clear on my part, right? Let me make this clear on my part. I wanted Harris to get in the race. I wanted Joe Biden to leave and only Harris to replace him. I've been rocking Harris for a long time, so I'm not making anti-Harris remarks.
No.
I don't care who she marries. I think that's awesome. All I'm saying is you can't make identity-based arguments to get 80, 90% of black men who have to do it based on love, right? Like that is not going to be the way to do it. I'm saying she needs to get Obama level numbers, which is, so we're not having an argument or a conversation about pathological black men or about who she should date. We're talking about the rhetorical strategy of getting a demographic to vote for you in crazy numbers, right? Crazy numbers. So we just have to recognize when we're like, she needs to get over 70, like if she gets 75% of the black vote, she may lose. If she has to get 80, that's cool. 85, great, right? Like 80, Hillary got 80% and lost, right? Because white woman demographics, other stuff. But we know that the margin of error, especially in Georgia, is going to be so slim that every vote counts, that you need these love level numbers for a demographic. So maybe it's just a bad strategy to begin with, to need to get numbers that high. Right. I think that, but however, I think that the group that we're talking about, right, is not unreasonable, because many people within that group, and again, I'm not giving my own opinion against this, because my opinion is totally the opposite. I support Harris. I'm going to work for a campaign. I wanted to get in when Biden was still there and he was messing up. I'm like, Harris needs to run, and will gladly support, vote, give money, all that other stuff. Right. No problem. But strategically, she needs the level of black men that just crazy high, right? And when we're making the argument about whether, why, like, how do you get that percentage to push it over to the 85%, which is just crazy high, you're not going to do it based on appeal to racial allegiance, right? We're saying that the racial arguments about identity, we're not saying she's making them, but we're saying that if you expect to get over 75% of vote in any demographic, that's crazy high. And there has to be some love allegiance. Like, she's going to get that there's going to be some identification, right? And if not, you got to go hardcore on the specific policy that help black men in overwhelming ways. And you need surrogates, right? You need like strong black male surrogates, right? I think, like the mayor of Newark, who worked closely with the Biden administration in unique ways and can be incredibly powerful with that. I think they need that to get to these other levels. I think he should have spoken at the convention. I don't know why he didn't, right? I don't know why the Harris administration didn't have the mayor of Newark, who worked with them on the Office of Violence Prevention, et cetera, in things that directly help black males, so he could talk about that, right? Is it a demographic that they understand they need to get in that high numbers? Are they just expecting it? What extra work are you putting in? I'm not saying she's wrong for marrying who she's wrong. That's not the argument. It's not what I'm saying at all. I am a supporter of Harris. I'm saying that the problem that she has with black males is that she's going to be very dependent on those incredibly love numbers that are not normal. They're not normal, right? It's not normal to get 90% of any demographic. It's not normal to get above 75% in any demographic.
I think she's going to get it.
60% is a landslide.
I think she's going to get it.
I think she has to work for it.
I mean, she definitely got to. She got to work for it. But these other, they don't vote. They're not registered to vote. They're just talking heads that wah. They're not gonna vote. Right. He said he's got 19% of the black male vote as opposed to 7% in 2020. That 19%. Okay, now we got 81% of the black male vote. Right. I think that 19% is elevated. I don't think he's gonna get Trump is going to get 19% of the black male vote. I don't think that. I can't justify it other than traditionally, historically, who comes out to vote and who do we vote for? And then these other people who are coming out of nowhere, when you find out how engaged they are in politics, not really. How informed are they? Not really. They really don't know. Bernard Clark, he said that what intrigues me is that black women trying to force Nancy Pelosi is the art of power, which lays out the case for this moment with Harris. Why do you think Pelosi selected Harris to replace? Pelosi didn't select Harris to replace Biden. Campaign finance laws dictates that the money that Biden had already raised for his campaign has to go to the VP, which is Kamala Harris. It couldn't have gone anywhere else, or they would have to start from scratch with raising money, and it was not enough time to do that. So
actually, Nancy Pelosi wanted an open convention. She openly came out and was like she wanted an open mini convention, right? That was pushed back on because it would have been horrible. I said this before too. I was like, if it's anyone but Harris, they will lose because they will lose the black woman demographic, because they will say, look at what you did to this black woman.
Right.
She was vice president. She was ready to take the lead, and you changed the rules in order to get the white person you wanted. It is
that wouldn't have gone over at all. And women let her know that too. They let that be known.
So that
it wasn't Pelosi at all.
Going right before Joe Biden backed away, right? I was like, if they force Joe Biden to step down and they replace him with Harris, I'm nervous because I'm a little skeptical about how white men and women are going to come out in support of Kamala Harris, right? He steps down. Within 28 to 48 hours, you had black women for Harris, white women for Harris, black men for Harris, white dudes for Harris. I ain't seen none of this fundraising by these individual groups go on for the other side. Haven't seen it. So that's what makes me so optimistic about how this election is going to go, because immediately people jumped on board in support of Harris in ways that we hadn't seen since Barack Obama. These different demographics, black women, black men.
And that's why I was so wanting her to run, because I knew that she would be able to get the culture behind her. Right.
Yeah.
And I knew that it would be like she would definitely be able. I was like, AKAs versus Trump. I'm going for the AKAs all day. Right. And so because the ability of organizing,
the whole divine nine,
exactly. Right. And because the AKAs will bring the divine nine. Right. It will bring like that whole type of culture.
And the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs. Don't forget them. Seriously.
Right. And but what I'm saying is all that comes with it. Right. When I say AKA, that's symbolic, right? It's real and symbolic at the same time, because there's a certain level of like blackness and elitism, and in a positive way, right? And pride, right? That goes into it. Black college pride, Bisons, right? Like everybody from Howard is like, ooh, right? So she has a way to tap into that, create excitement, and that's what we saw, right? Like, and that's really positive. I'm just nervous that on the edges it's still going to be close, right? When you have someone who's that much more qualified than the next person, than the mediocre white man, than the mediocre, clearly crazy white man, right? And it's going to be nail-biting close.
The closeness concerns me because I think that this one really needs to be overwhelming in light of all the little games that they have already set up to play. If and when Trump loses.
I think Brian Kemp needs to make the right decision in Georgia, because Brian Kemp is like basically there's a lot of little political stuff going on in Georgia about people who can certify the vote, and a committee they have on elections that has more power than the state, than the Secretary of State, right? And they change these rules. And you have the Republicans in Georgia again going, this is wrong. Might as well be, because they talked about Brian Kemp's wife. I'm like, oh, Brian Kemp's wife was like, I ain't voting for Trump. I'm going to write in my husband's name, right? Like, said it out. And Trump said something derogatory about Brian Kemp's wife. And you think Brian Kemp is like, yeah, we all patched it up. But everybody knows, Brian, you ain't patched that up. You ain't using your political whatever, right? And so he has to make a decision about whether he's going to let this Trump majority get its way in a way that will devastate the elections in Georgia and delay them to the point where it'll have to be thrown to Congress, or it'll have to be thrown, or potentially they could lose their votes, right? So there's chaos that's being created even right now in Georgia, and what you're talking about, where if it's close, they'll be able to create chaos.
Let me tell you something too. Driving around Georgia and in the areas that normally would have Trump signs like stretched across the way, I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing. I'll see like one Trump sign here or there, but I'm not seeing the same number of signs that I saw at one time for Trump. Or even that I saw for Kemp. I'm not seeing those signs out there for Trump at all.
I got approached in the gym the other day, right? Gentlemen said, "Oh, it's crazy out there. It's getting so bad." I'm like, "What do you mean it's getting so bad? It's not that bad to me. What do you mean? Don't you see what's going on? It's the culture wars." I said, "Bro, I grew up in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s when there was stop and frisk. When there was, no, but they're trying to take the guns away." I'm like, what, like 1967 with the Black Panther Party? Ronald Reagan came out with the NRA and took the guns away because Black Panthers were exiled in their right to carry. So everything he said, there was like a stop. And I'm like, bro, this dude, Donald Trump, well, we're not really, I'm not with him. He was obviously Republican. I guarantee you he voted for Trump in the last 2 elections, but he made it a point to distance himself from Trump, though I could tell he was very hardcore right-wing Republican. So
right, and that's because if you love institutions, a lot of Republicans are like, I love institutions. I love the United States Congress. I love the Constitution, right? And if I love the Constitution of the United States, then I can't support him after he did what he did on 1/6.
No.
And people go back to 1/6 and be like, you supported a mob to overturn a democratically elected election, and you're still denying that you lost 2 years later. You're a threat to actual democracy, and that messes up the money for everybody, right? And so I think that is like one of those like things, right? Like where that 1/6 is affecting a lot of Republicans, whether it be people who work for George Bush, both of them, right? People who were in Romney's campaign. Like you look at people who are in his cabinet, they're supporting him. His own vice president isn't supporting him anymore. Bernard Clark, you write that Tulsi Gabbard jumped ship along with the RFK. Well, Tulsi jumped ship like years ago when she ran for the Democratic nomination after she left. She didn't, right? Like she was very clear that where she was. And RFK was an independent, and he offered, and he went to Harris and was like, "Will you give me a cabinet position?" She was like, "Hell no." And he went to Trump. He was like, "Will you give me a position?" He was like, "I'll put you on my transition committee." And it was like, "Yes." So that was transactional. So I mean, it is what it is,
and
it's nowhere near the same extent.
Along with this, it needs to be overwhelming. Landslide, but it needs to be very strategic because the Electoral College elects the president, not the popular vote. So you could have an overwhelmingly, popular vote landslide and still lose.
But that's what she meant, overwhelming in these states. As in, it needs to be clear in Georgia. It needs to be clear in these states because there's all these shenanigans.
So all of those electoral votes.
Michigan, like.
Right. Pennsylvania scares me because it's going to take them a week to count the votes, right? Which means that there's some level of I think disruption that Republicans are already planning to do in Philadelphia or something like that because they don't want those votes counted, right? They want to stop the counting of votes. And I think that is incredibly dangerous. I think what Pennsylvania did and not fixing what happened last time, right? Last time, why Pennsylvania? Why can't you count your votes? Why don't you take all your early votes and why can't you count them early? They did not count them early, right? They waited till after the election was over to count all these votes. And it took them days in order to be able to do that. And Trump was winning Pennsylvania. And then when they counted all the people who voted by mail, that's when it was it was overwhelmingly significantly in support of Biden. And it seemed like a come from behind victory simply because it took a long time to count the votes. They could be planning all kinds of mischief. Because remember in 2000, the Supreme Court literally just stopped the counting of the votes. They had said, no more vote counting, we're stopping it. In a crazy decision, right? They stopped Florida. They literally stopped Florida from counting votes. And Gore was gracious enough to be like, I'm not going to go to war over this.
Yeah. So
that's why, and that's how it ended.
Right.
I'm down here in Florida, which is Trump country, or used to be, right? So there's a town that's what is it called? It's the Villages, right? And I'm going to see my mom And she's like, you know, the villages, oh, this is all Trump country. This, you don't have no idea. This is just Trump. This runs this run. So a couple weeks ago, they had Republicans for Harris in the villages. Big camp. I mean, it was like all these white folks who are sworn Republicans are like, nah, we're not. We're voting for Harris. So to see that happen in that town, that gives me a huge amount of optimism. You know, down here in Florida, it's not a given that Trump's going to carry Florida. It's not a given.
But there's a chance.
There's always a chance. There's always a chance.
But what I'm thinking too, it's even though the focus is on Georgia largely and on some of the tactics and things that are going on, these kind of shenanigans are nationwide. They're going on throughout in different parts of the country, you know, and so we have to just be vigilant. We really have to watch what's happening and stay on top of things. I'm glad that the Harris campaign put out the lawsuit against the state of Georgia for, you know, what their election processes were, and it seems to have made a difference, at least in terms of Kemp looking like he's going to do something. So, you know, we just have to be vigilant. We have to be on top of things. We have to really see, you know, what's what, you know. When Trump was at one of the rallies and he called out 3 of the election people who were putting on, helping with the election, and he called them out by name. He knew who they were, and they, you know, I was wondering what was going to happen with that. Like if they were really going to do anything, if they were going to allow these people to work in the election. And it turns out that I believe they were let go, or Kemp was looking into whether he could let them go, whether he could fire these campaign. They weren't supposed to be working with the campaign. They were supposed to be working with the.
They're supposed to be independent, right? They're supposed to be independent
with the election,
and that's what's going on right now. I don't know if he's made a decision on that yet.
Yeah, so you know, we'll see what happens with that.
But if he makes a decision on that, Trump will start talking about him and his wife again.
Yeah, Bernard Clark is mad at us.
Why?
Because there's no black Republicans on the panel. It's a biased echo chamber.
Well, there's about to be a black Republican on the panel. Che Colter is going to be coming in shortly. There was a little bit of a mix-up, and I think that he was like anger. I don't think he's angry.
I was being facetious, fine. Bernard. I was being facetious, family.
Okay, so Che, welcome to the show. I know,
how you doing?
Good evening. Like you do a lot of things in the city. You speak out. You speak out often, and you do things right, like that are generally that have been generally positive, right? Like in terms of being an advocate for schools. Even if I disagree with charter school stuff, you are there trying to do things and trying to make the world a little better place, right?
Yes, we do.
So you identified as a Republican?
Yes. I identify as a pro-black Republican. This would be my 20th year of being Republican. I have always, since 2004, that was when I kind of left the left's way of doing politics on the behalf of a long-term black agenda. And the next year after that, I remember being on a bus ride to the Millions More movement in DC. And I always had these internal conversations that we need to broadly look at both parties and how we leverage our representation with both parties. Hakim, good evening, and Miss Annette, good evening, and to, the other viewers. When I thought about this, Hakim and you all, I looked at us being the 47 million resident citizens in America, the black and minority. I'm talking about primarily black, that's the descendants of those who set up the country, served in slavery, had to make it through. That 47 million resident citizen population, we are in a hostile relationship with the Democrat Party, whether that's on the local level or the federal level. And there are Democrats and Republicans who both have had to get switched out by the residents electing them out or keeping them in. I say that because when we look at from 2004 to 2024, the election turnout for the cycle 2020 had 136 million people, and then in 2024, 155 million people came out to vote. So there's still a divided country in terms of how we're seeming to vet both of the candidates. I have people in my family that support Harris, but I would say large areas of the Black population are discussing how to move forward, whether that's going to be Kamala Harris or President Donald Trump serving.
Now, even though you are a Republican, you're not necessarily a Trump fan. Like you're not like a party person. You tend to say, or at least in the conversations, you're like, I am all about like policy first, right? Or at least that's what you said. I'm just asking for clarification so that the listeners say. So are you like a definite, yeah, I'm voting for Trump. He's done it for me.
Well, see, here's where we are, John. Because of the 47 million citizen situation, when we look at securing a better contract between Black America and our federal representation, we looked at the direct policy implications. So when we took a closer look at how the Black vote has been taken for granted from when I entered the party in 2004 to 2024, we need a stronger contract with Black America. You saw the proposed platinum plan, which was totaled at $500 billion in net investment. Whether it's a city like East Orange or Newark that may have a Democrat mayor, those mayors can still leverage something like a platinum plan that's having companies invest
and you're talking about. And you're talking about the plan that Trump said in 2020, right?
Yes,
that was
the platinum plan. Yeah,
Ice Cube.
Yeah, Ice Cube.
But was that a response? Was the platinum plan a response to Ice Cube? It was a Trump document that was a response to what Ice Cube initiated. Was that what we're talking about?
That is what we're talking about, and it has more than one plank. One of it was the $500 billion. The other plank involved national clemency program to the criminal justice reform, because one of the things that we've been seeing, Hakim and Annette, is for the mass incarceration, our community is still repairing itself under both parties with that. I'm not putting that on either party, but I will say I saw the under the Trump years and under the city of Newark, them have nonviolent programs, but we also saw at the federal level some criminal justice reform. People looking at more community-based prevention and intervention for the youth, the vocational training, some of those other programs, John. I feel like the schools in Newark, whether that's the Board of Education or other schools, we need to still secure federal resources.
Well, I mean, I think, well, just to push back on just what I think are under Trump, he actually reinitiated private prisons, and Jeff Sessions was his attorney general. That pushed back on the policies of consent decrees. And under the Biden administration, they actually re-pushed consent decrees with a different Justice Department that was more conscious, or at least pushed, looking at exploring issues of police brutality and trying to hold people to consent decrees, in addition to pushing an Office of Violence Prevention at a federal level. That wasn't under Trump. That the Office of Violence Prevention at a federal level was under Biden, who worked with specifically Newark and people in Newark, right?
Yes, he did. All right, he did.
That was Biden.
Yes, and those congressional funds, even when Trump was in office, because Congress approved them, there were still times that Jersey needed resources, and he still signed that federal legislation. But to your point,
I have a question.
Go ahead, Hakim. Go ahead, Hakim.
Congressional funds.
Yes.
Which Congress? The Republican-led Congress or the Democratic-led Congress?
Oh no, I said it was Hakim. Those were legislative bills that the Democrats passed, and he agreed to still sign them, and he had to work with them. They've been able to hold Trump accountable on some stuff, up to and including, you see the federal. I feel that if anybody breaks the law, they have to face the law. But he still made sure Jersey was well funded, even to the example, Hakim, in December, at the end of his term, on December 23rd, 2020, he pre-purchased 100 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine to send to governors, whether Democrat or Republican. But that was part of a deal to be able to purchase another 400 million doses of the vaccine, even once he wasn't even president. So the vaccines that
I'm glad you said
and Biden started off with came out of the decision once he was ending the pandemic. All he said was, I'm going to produce the vaccine if you want it. I have it if you want it. If you don't want to take it, it's up to you. And then when we got Harris, it got mandated. But go ahead, Hakim.
No, I'm just glad you said that, because other folks from the other side to push back on the COVID-19 vaccine, and it's good that you said that to clear that up.
It was never mandated. Actually, Biden never mandated taking the vaccine.
That's what I was going to say. It was, I believe, mandated for health workers. I think some areas mandated it for health workers, but that makes sense. I mean, you're working with people who,
but there was no general mandate.
No,
it's mandated. There's no general mandate for taking it.
When I hear the former president say that one of the first things he's going to do when he gets in office is indemnify the police, that's scary. When I hear things like mass deportation, to me, that just gives people the power to round us up and tell it to the judge, especially when you can't be held accountable as a police officer for mishaps, mistakes, or totally just breaking the law. When the former president comes out and says that makes me worry.
And especially when he's referring to the Eisenhower program, that the Eisenhower program, right, of mass deportation was literally called Operation Wetback. And that's what he's accessing, right? That was what the program was called, right? That your man, Donald Trump, is referencing, right? As part of his immigration policy, part of his mass deport. He wants mass deportations like had in Eisenhower, where we deported actual citizens, right? We deported people because it was mass deportations. It was racist in its nature of what it was doing. But so when it comes to policing,
I follow you. I in response to some of what you, and this is not a debate, this is a family roundtable discussion.
Right.
One of the things that I feel like this show does, and we need to get more to, is reestablishing that table wisdom amongst cousins, families, uncles, so that we can learn from each other. Y'all opened my eyes to something. I just felt that on that immigration piece, because things have become so polarizing in the language these days, one of the things, John, that I did some digging to see what could have been done about the immigration policies, and shockingly, John, both historical education districts and school choice districts, the charter schools, and violence prevention programs were able to still be extended to students. So if a family was able to make it here, Trump pushed back on if someone had children and they were able to enroll in, say, a Newark or East Orange or Irvington, because we didn't really have that in Newark. Trump never really Raz didn't really have to deal with Trump as a monster the way that the media has made that. I think Raz would probably tell him, call me when you get to the airport. But I don't think, the amount of resources we got from COVID, and then our our
again,
response to mass incarceration, John, is go ahead, John.
just to push back on the way in which that deportation policy was held in Newark. I'm a teacher in Newark, and a lot of my students are undocumented. And there were literal roundups, like under the Obama administration, they deported. He mass deported. Obama deported more people than any other president in history. That's true, right?
They both did. Yeah, yeah.
But the difference was Obama deported people who were involved in the criminal justice system. So if you committed a crime, you were top of the line for deportation. If you did not commit a crime, you were a very low priority, like they wouldn't deport you. And then he had an entire new category of dreamers who were not going to get deported, right? The Trump administration has pushed back on dreamers, and they were deporting everybody. They deported people not in order. They were literally, ICE would go to neighborhoods in Newark federally and round people up. They wouldn't get the support of the local police, but they have jurisdiction because they're federal, right? And they would put people in detention centers and deport them. That happened. And the mayor has said, "You will not make us slave catchers." That was a direct quote from Baraka when talking about why he was not working with ICE to capture, round up, detain people in this random way. He was like, "We're not going to be slave catchers." So you're right in that local places are able to educate whoever comes before us. I'm a teacher. A lot of my kids, a lot of my students are undocumented. That is true. Like all over public education, we're getting more bilingual students that we are obligated to pay more for, right? So I'm not even saying immigration is not a problem, right?
But John, what
New
do
York
we
City
say?
is being busted through.
Okay. What do we
So I'm not
say?
saying it's not a. I'm sorry,
Okay.
you're saying.
No, I hear what you're saying, that they didn't want to make themselves catchers, but they were dealing with the social challenge of the over incarceration, and the absence of Black fathers has led to a significant pattern that has disrupted Black families. So that's why we see Black men really leveraging our political vote this presidential election, because with the cause and effect of the over incarceration, the mass incarceration, and us coming a distance forward after slavery, we don't want to see more opportunities taken away from Black men. We want to see them, our reentry community, reinvested in, and not have to just have a country where we have another generation of mass incarceration. I'm not blaming Harris for that, but with her being attached to the Biden brand, that's what I feel like is something that's causing more of a divide. And people are wondering, John, has she made the case? Has she made the case to the Black family that we are gonna have some tangibles at the end of this election? When we look at the Black mothers, they benefited from the tax credits, the child tax credits that Trump didn't cut those away. Biden still kept the family tax credits, but those are all tax policy, and there's other stuff that Black families stand to benefit from and not fall down from.
Well, I think
I gotta ask a question though. Like, why do you feel like Trump is more in the corner of families, middle class, than say Harris, who is from the middle class, who has actually put out policies and things and has been doing things as vice president that shows where her heart is, what she's determined to do? What has Trump done that would signify to you that he would have Black people's best interests in mind? Just what has he done?
That is a masterful question, Miss Alston. Miss Alston, he has sounded the alarm that political correctness in the American national fabric has a fine line between the needs of families' everyday challenge being Americans and the flow of resources between rich and poor and the budgeting of the national climate of the economy. So when we look at the energy prices, that hits Black families twice as hard. When we look at the national wars and that causing more anxiety of whether that's the national fabric, people jumping the line of immigration, it causes a national strain on not only our social fabric, our cultural fabric, but the national safety of the country. So,
but when you're talking about policies, right?
Mhm.
His economic policy was a tax cut for really rich people. When he left office, there was incredible rates of unemployment. Like the way in which COVID was dealt with, like literally the Biden administration started in a deficit and pushed up. Even if you're talking about inflation right now, in the United States is better than it was in the rest of the world because when we came out of COVID, inflation hit the rest of the world. And then you had some people taking advantage of it, right? Like there were companies there were certain food companies that had record profits, but yet raised their prices. And they were raising their prices. They were saying it was inflation, yet made record profits, which doesn't make any sense, right? If you're making record profits, then like if it's inflation hitting you, that means you're not making money because everything else is more expensive too, right?
Correct.
Like the goods, services, all those things. You shouldn't have record profits if you're raising your prices because of inflation, right? You should be struggling like everybody else. But all these supermarkets like Walmart, Kroger, all these people are making record profits.
Yep.
And but do you think Trump is really going to deal with price gouging? Do you think he's really going to be holding like rich people accountable for that? He's not.
To respond to her and your thing, to respond to both of y'all questions. If we saw during the height of the pandemic recession, depression almost, he made sure that resources went out to all families. Even you got something on top of your unemployment resources. Now, obviously, we don't need another pandemic and we don't need a World War III. But
that was Congress that made
John's
sure
challenge.
of that. That was Congress that made sure of that.
Go ahead, Hakim.
Congress made sure of that. He just signed his name on that nasty signature.
And Trump went along with it, and yes, he had the Department, the Treasury signed for it, and that is true. Republicans in general were against it, but he did sign it, right? Trump signed the bill that gave COVID relief. He signed another bill that he also got the vaccine. Signed the bills that got the vaccines that he said that people shouldn't take. But those were two good things that Trump did. However,
but John, he pre-purchased 400 million after he pre-purchased an additional 400 million doses after the first 100 million doses that he purchased to make sure we had extra
bleach.
However, he created so much confusion. The United States had the highest number of deaths from COVID of any other country, right? We had the vaccines, but people didn't take them and died because of the way he did and said what he said.
Can I say something? Hakim about to get me. Go ahead, Hakim.
So, mind you, Che, I didn't vote for Obama twice. Right, because I thought they was going to use the black man to usher in the Illuminati. I was all caught up conspiracy theory, whatever. It's a whole story, whole backstory. I'll send you an article I just recently dropped on All Hip Hop that kind of explains it. That said, when President Obama was the president, we had a crisis with Ebola. One man came over with Ebola. One person died. Donald Trump said Obama should be impeached because of it. So if Obama should be impeached because one person came over with Ebola and one person died, why are we even talking about Donald Trump with COVID?
Right. And the funny thing is, people were upset at Obama for not letting people right into the country. Some people forget about that. I mean, he there were at least several cases where people were kept from coming into the country or they were isolated And for a while, I think like a week, 2 weeks before they could come into the country or go home or whatever, till they were cleared. And people forget about that.
Yeah.
And it was a big
1
agree.
million
Also
people
because
died
of
of
the
COVID.
because
1
of
million
Ebola,
people
said
in the
one
United States.
person died.
one person died.
One
Because of
million,
person
1,200,000 people died of COVID.
because of Ebola, President Obama set up the Office of Infectious Diseases to deal with a pandemic.
Right.
Because of studying what happened in West Africa, because of knowing how diseases, how diseases work. They set up a Department of Infectious Diseases to be able to have a system set up in case a COVID happened. One of the first things Donald Trump did was dismantle that office.
Dismantle it.
Right.
He didn't
Right,
even.
that's true.
They had a whole.
As a waste of money.
He didn't even look at
Right.
the book and everything. He didn't look at anything that had to do with what he had set up. Had he paid attention to that, had that still been in place, I'm sure fewer people would have died.
Maybe only
Probably a
half
whole
of
We had
them.
more.
You know what?
We had more.
Annette and
We
Hakim,
had
you know
a
what? I'll
very
give-
effective vaccine. We
You know
had a
what?
very effective vaccine. More
Annette and
effective
Hakim,
than
I'll
the
give
other
y'all that
vaccine.
one. I'm gonna look into that. I'll give y'all that one. They got me on that one, John. But we're gonna look at that over the next couple of weeks as we get closer. Annette, something that I had in my notes that I wanted to respond to your question to appreciate your time is when you were saying what are one of the other pillars or points of information for our national community of those 47 million. In 2019, the Fostering Undergraduate Talent, the Future Act, which was a bipartisan piece of legislation he signed to increase the funding to the HBCUs, which there's some collective opportunity issues involved with Uncle Trump, where his grumpiness becomes something that we can kind of deal with as a national community. Because, quite frankly, we have grumpy people throughout American society. And do I think his personal and public relations is always so good? No. But there's some legislation that he got done in that, like the HBCU Future Act, where he made an initiative at the end going out when he knew he wasn't coming back in to be president, that each federal agency had to make a coordinated effort to engage HBCUs. And we know that the legacy of that goes all the way back to almost the end of something that Hakim was referencing at the beginning of the show in terms of 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. That takes us right back to 1865, 66, and then the 15th Amendment was signed in 1869. And those HBCUs have a long, deep legacy between, I think, both the Harris voters and the Black Trump voters. So whichever. Go ahead, John.
Harris, and of course Harris and the Biden-Harris administration also gave a lot of money to HBCUs, like and significantly, right? Like so that's not necessarily a Trump but I would say there are some things that Trump did that were good. Money to HBCUs was good. The Trump Second Chance Act was good, right? Like as in making sure that or letting people go who were in jail for nonviolent crimes. There was a series of people that he let go.
Yes, John. I mean, and to the hip hop community, the hip hop community still, I think, wants to get some of the longest serving federal inmates some of them are pushing the 80s, John. And I think that's something that we'll work on say for another show. But Hakim knows where I'm going with that.
Che, yeah. Rappers is not the hip hop community. So we gotta be
fair.
Individual rappers don't
Not
constitute the hip hop community.
I'm sorry. Not rappers. For example, there were some folks in the Jersey criminal justice community who I felt were due a clemency application, and one of them, his son is an elected official in Rawway. I think he's been on the show, Mr. Jeff Brooks. His father, who was a Newark resident, Wayne Akbar Prey, I felt should get a clemency application, and I didn't see Democrats in New Jersey go as strong as they could have to get Akbar Prey home. But that's something that Black Republicans support. We want to get people who are could help with some of the nonviolent and us building a new fabric on giving these children a lifestyle versus this negative death style that they're picking up, John, and we get healthy, vibrant children coming into your classroom, Jonathan.
For me, the most important pressing thing was, and I know that we're almost out, and we've extended this segment a lot actually, and we definitely want you back on because I like these conversations, and I know you do a lot of things, and but I think there's a difference between Republicans and Trump, and there's a difference between certain types of older school Republican values that I might have disagreed with, but they were rational and they weren't destructive. I think after 1/6, where he denied he denied that he lost the election, and he did so in a way that stoked violence and caused the Capitol to be like wrecked and caused a lot of people to think that the elections were actually rigged. So there is a violent tenor to politics in the United States, because if you're in a democracy and you're saying the election was rigged, it's either the ballot or the bullet. And he knows what he did. Like, he knows that he is literally stoking violence then, and he's stoking violence now.
6 people
Like,
died.
many people think that the election, right? Many people think that the election's right now, like in November. A lot of people are scared that there's going to be violence in November. Like, I'm thinking that they're going to try to bum rush Philadelphia because of false accusations of false accusations of cheating, right? This is your man's, right? I can understand Republicans, but I cannot understand someone who did that, right? Did that, and you'll be like, yes, we need to give you the keys to the office again, even though you lied and continue to lie and tell a dangerous, violent lie that you won the election when you lost, knowing that in America, we say, give us liberty or give us death. We say that you have the ballot or the bullet. We say that if you don't respect democracy, if we don't have one person, one vote, then that's a justification for death. The Declaration of Independence is a justification of political murder, right? They're saying if these things are not met, we have a right to kill. That is embedded in like our cultural documents. So for him to say falsely that he won the election and get people to literally riot on his behalf, his own vice president is like, nah, he's unfit to be president because he put himself before the Constitution of the United States. So his man, the vice president, is like, or nah, I don't understand how other people who did not work for him could be like, yes.
200 other Republicans have come out and said they're voting for Kamala Harris, that many of them used to work with Trump, okay, as president. I don't understand why people feel like they have to align themselves with Trump or vote for Trump when so many people, Republicans themselves, not one, not two, 200 have signed a paper and said a letter, and they are not voting for Trump. They are not only not voting for Trump, they are going to support Harris. That says a lot. That says a lot, that right there. And so I would just love to know what your thought is in terms of the number of Republicans that have en masse come over to support.
And because of the lie and political violence, like, do you think that the Republicans are like, hey, you have disgraced the Constitution of the United States?
There
what do
are,
you say, man?
Oh, yeah, Annette, there are, just as with anything in life, there are good and bad, apples and everything. You get some people that follow the rules, some people that won't. And I must say, there were some people that were very upset at the last presidential results because of how the ballots were allegedly counted. We'll get into that on another show, but
but it's not that. That's a lie.
Like, no, there's a lot. That's what I'm gonna tie it up, y'all. They hold on. There's some noise in the background. There is the 47 million residents that are Black citizens we weren't really as implicated in the January 6th
No, I'm
scenario
just
with Trump.
asking, why are you supporting him based on that? He lied about a
Based on
democratic election
the
and he
lies.
caused a riot.
Six
5
people
people
died.
died.
Oh,
Five
John.
police
Oh,
officers,
John.
one civilian died. he said.
Hakim, I can answer that. Hakim, those rioters, or what the media calls as rioters,
They
not
were rioters.
everyone in the Republican Party is like a Harvard or an Ivy League student. These are like motorcycle bikers. These are imagine.
Che,
Oh, go ahead, Hakim. Go ahead, Hakim.
Che. Donald Trump incited a riot on January 6th,
Yes.
where 6 people died, 5 police officers, 1 civilian. I don't care that they were motorcycle bikers. I don't care that they were uneducated. I don't care. What I care is that the president of the United States incited these people to an insurrection.
And didn't try to stop
There was Hakim. There was a Hakim
could
and
have
Annette.
stopped it right away. Did not.
That's why they investigated it, because there was a timeline of events, Hakim. Yes, he did say, go to the Capitol and assemble down there. But he
I'm going to join you. And I'm going to join you.
Yeah,
I'm going to join you.
No, he said he would join them and speak to them. But he did condemn those other bad apples.
How many hours later?
They went.
Dude,
there's a timeline with.
No,
go ahead, John.
Do you grant that he lied about losing the election, and that lie is what stoked people and made them mad?
He watched the insurrection.
Do you agree he lied about
go to the
losing
Capitol
the election
and fight like hell?
And he watched them do it and did nothing.
John, he conceded eventually. He eventually conceded and gave. He never
gave
conceded.
He never conceded. He never conceded. He still says to this day, he says to this day that he won the election.
But John, that was because there was a lot of lawsuits.
Yes, he lost all of them.
And some of them were his judges that he put in place.
Right. His own judges were like, nah, you lost, son. It's done.
Che, you remember the Central Park 5, right?
Yeah, I remember that back when I was a kid. I'm born in '83. That's one of.
So let me fill you in, right?
Okay.
They were accused of raping and brutally beating a young woman, a jogger in the park, Central Park jogger.
White woman.
Right. White woman. 3 of the 5 were arrested days later with the police going to their homes and pulled out of their homes. Arrested.
Oh boy, I see where this is going. Okay.
Donald Trump took out full-page ads calling for their execution. Okay. They get found guilty. The person who actually committed the crime admits to it, and his DNA puts him on the scene. The Central Park 5 is now the exonerated 5 because of scientific DNA evidence, and the person who did it admitted to it. In 2014, Donald Trump was asked, would he like to apologize for taking out that full-page ad? And he said no, he still thought they were guilty. He doubled down on it. That's 2014. Happened in '88. This is 2014. We know what the truth of the matter is. He still won't accept the truth of the matter and just apologize. Don't you think that's a person of poor character that doesn't need to be the president of the United States of America?
Would you want anyone with that kind of character?
Just let him answer.
Hey, Hakim, the next time that the parents from Bedminster meet with the parents in Newark, I'll ask them. I haven't met Trump. The people that he's friends with in New Jersey, I will tell them to ask them.
The person that I just described, which is this is actual fact. He's apologized for it in private. They said he's apologized for it in private. He
took out a whole ad.
He didn't call for the execution. He didn't call for the execution in private. He took out a full-page ad.
Yeah, that was wrong back in the day. That was wrong back in the day.
It was
He's
wrong back
still
in the
not
day.
apologizing for it now.
And he's still not apologizing for it now, brother. That person can't be the president. It's a shame that he already was.
But can you just answer this question? He lied about you agree he lied about losing the election, right? And still lying about it.
When you say lied, you mean
he says I won, I was cheated, stop the steal. That's what he said. Your man lying, right?
And he still says stop the steal. He has to stop.
So I mean, Che, answer a question, brother.
There was a lot of states divided over how the states changed their voter laws. They were allowed to count ballots after the polling places were closed, John.
At this point,
New Jersey never had a problem with that.
The Republican Party in Arizona, in one of those states where there was questions, right now says they're voting for Harris because he lied about Arizona. The head of the election, said that he lied about Arizona's election results.
In Georgia, you have
the Republican who's head of the said, no, you're not going to get me to go along with that. That's a lie.
You have the Republican governor of Georgia, the Republican state secretary of state of Georgia. They were Republicans. And they're like, no, Trump, you lost. Stop lying. He hates Brian Kemp, Republican in Georgia. Like he talks about his wife because he wouldn't lie for him. Come on, man. Are you really saying you don't know that Trump was lying?
It does circle back
into
the Georgia. It circles back, Annette and y'all, into the Georgia matter. They had all of those lawsuits in those different states where it was real close. It was real close.
And 11,000 some odd votes off.
11,700 votes. That's all I need.
Republicans were like, no, you lost.
You lost.
Like the Republicans in Georgia. It wasn't Democrats in Georgia saying they lost. The Republicans who say
it may be that close again, y'all, where we see lawsuits.
No, but
Harris might have to sue him. He might end up suing
but lying. Like, can we admit there's lying going on? Trump is lying.
John. I condemn his language. His language.
No.
You're saying
his language. No, he's lying. It's not language. He's lying.
So language is used for lying.
In 2000, there was a discrepancy about the Florida election between George Bush and Al Gore. Still to this day, I think Al Gore won the election, right? But to save the nation, Al Gore did an honorable thing. I disagree with what he did,
right?
But however, it was honorable because he saved the nation. Okay, that's honor. Trump is not an honorable man. In 94, there was a crime bill signed. Now, it was the result of a Reagan-Bush administration hard on crime in order for a Democrat to win a national election. It was
in 95?
94. It was also
the Clinton crime bill.
It was also local leaders in Black communities under the siege of the crack epidemic, thanks to the Reagan-Bush administration, right, saying you got to do something. There was a crime bill led by and signed by Joe Biden. Okay. When Joe Biden was faced with he said, you know what? I made a mistake. That was the wrong approach. There's other things we could have and should have done. That's honorable. Donald Trump is not that honorable, bro.
I'm not calling him honorable. I'm just saying I need someone that's going to take care of the economy, make sure that we don't have a World War III, fund our schools. COVID? Get these hospitals together. You made solid points. Donald
Trump said, first of all, he has had the second in command of Iran assassinated. And he recently said that Israel should go basically smash the Palestinians, smash Gaza, take back. They need to win the war, and I'll do everything in my power to make sure Israel wins that war. That's only going to stoke World War III, bro.
But what about Hakim, and the fact that we didn't really have a lot of conflict in the biblical lands or any of the holy lands that are as holy lands of most
Bible. When we talk about politics.
Start
speaking Bible.
Not Bible. The mere visitation ability of what's referred to as the Dome of the Rock Mosque, for a long time, the Muslim community was not able to visit this very historic mosque. And when Trump moved the capital of Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, they were able to visit this place. This is the Dome of the Rock Mosque, not to bring religion into it, but it has historical significance, and I didn't realize how much diplomatic significance to peace in the region. This is like a historical.
To the Palestinians, this haven't been peace in the region for 75 years.
Yes, but
okay, all right. He had the second in command of Iran assassinated. We know what happened with Iraq in a war that was relied. So like that whole area has been experiencing war and conflict.
It has. It's been through a lot.
It's not like they were at peace just because Donald Trump was the president. That's not what happened.
And I'm not gonna defend U.S. foreign policy at large, because we both, I think all of us disagree with a lot of elements of U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. I've disagreed with that for a long time. We're like, when I vote for a Democrat, I don't vote for someone I agree with 100%. I vote for people who I would fight with, but I would have to fight with on fewer things.
Yes.
Right.
And
so it's not like I agree with them on.
What about John and Hakim? The fact that we can either have a globalist leadership where we have a president that's more concerned about using our resources around the world, versus a national fabric where we have Black families thriving, we have jobs around the community, where we have well-funded schools.
So here's the thing, like,
globalism.
The way in which you're talking about it, right?
A safe parkway and a safe 280.
The economy under the Obama administration, Obama started off in 2008. We were recession, market crash, historic, right? Banks were failing, all that other stuff. Obama had just like an incredible comeback in the economy, right? And that economy lasted well. Like, Trump never dealt with an economic crisis. One happened under his watch, but he never solved one, right? Like, Trump inherited an amazing economy that he inherited from Obama. It was the longest peacetime growth in history, right? Started under Obama. Trump got it, right? And then he lost it. By the time he left, it was one of the worst economies that we had, right? And yes, he misdealt with COVID. Over 1 million people died. Like, what you were remembering in this, like, oh, the economy was good, was like, no, the thing that was actually things that helped from Obama, not Trump. Trump there was a huge recession and heavy joblessness in 2020 when he lost, right? The economy was in shambles. It had to open up again after COVID. There were over 1 million people who had died based on COVID. That was all under Trump, man. And so if you're like, you want the economy to be good, in the last 4 years, the entire world was dealing with inflation. Inflation hit the United States least, right? The rest of the world was dealing with inflation. So yes, prices are more expensive because they were more expensive all over the world. Secondly, there's only one candidate talking about the obvious of price gouging. There were some corporations that seem to take advantage of that. And the reason why people say they take advantage of that is because when you raise prices and inflation, businesses go under too, right? Businesses struggle. Businesses don't make record profits, right? You have food suppliers, and you have major corporate like Walmart. You have major corporations that are making major and you have making major money, right, off of inflationary prices. Then that's not inflation, man. That's gouging. Only one person.
But John, what about China paying us our fair share and us not being like
paying our fair share? I don't know what you're talking about. Enslaved
by like high prices across
that's the
whole national economy.
That's the 52 fake. That's the 52 fake out. China's not going to pay for the tariffs. The American consumer is going to pay the tariffs.
Right, like tariffs actually make things more expensive. Absolutely. Right, because like you're literally talking about the tariffs that you're talking about that were placed under by the Trump administration Like, and what Trump actually wants to increase, he wants to increase tariffs. Tariffs are taxes. They're taxes.
You
on
don't think
Chinese
we
goods.
should bring jobs back here to put in the cities where
Yes,
Okay, so
yeah, I
people
do.
should have a non-college career path?
Yes,
I'm
Jay.
not saying. I'm
Jay,
not.
I'm with you, Jay. I'm with you, which is
Biden's
part
done
of the
that.
Go ahead,
reason why
Hakeem.
we got that. Why Biden got that $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill passed,
Right.
and the Build Back Better bill passed, and the CHIPS bill back passed
More
to bring the jobs back to America, along with educational opportunities.
Those are actual policies.
Those actual
But that's
policies.
because they're
What
trying
Trump talks
to
about were
fix.
actual
That's
policies.
not rhetoric. That's actually what happened in law.
Trump had tariffs and a tax cut for rich people.
That was to continue, Hakeem, fixing the national fabric. They had to fix it. We can't go back to a globalist managed
Yeah, but the
national
thing
economy.
about tariffs is that they get placed on the consumer, bro.
Right.
Prices will
It just makes prices more
go up, like
expensive.
exponentially go up to offset. If you put the tariff on China,
We'll look at
China's
that. We're gonna
going
look
to
at
put
that.
it on the
That's
price of
that's
goods,
economics
bro.
101, and it's based on exactly what Hakeem is talking about, right? Like tariffs are taxes. They're taxes on cheap Chinese goods. Those Chinese goods become more expensive. That means you, as a consumer, will pay more for those Chinese goods. That does not necessarily mean that
Chinese gonna pay
businesses
for
will
it.
start to grow to produce those same Chinese goods.
So
Like
you're
that's
sure
why
we
you
weren't
bring
getting?
different industries in there.
So we're gonna look at that more closer. So y'all to show we weren't getting more money back in those 4 years. That if we could have continued them, that some of
for a
the
year and a half, because for a year and a half, nobody could go outside.
Right.
The economy was obliterated because of COVID. So no, it didn't. None of that helped the economy on that point. But what he wants to do if he's reelected is place tariffs on Chinese goods. In return, the Chinese are going to raise the prices on those goods. So the consumer, us in America, will have to pay more for the goods.
Now it did help billionaires. Trump was great for billionaires. If you had money, if you were a billionaire, you had a lot of money. And billionaires saved their money. They didn't necessarily put it back in the economy.
They put their money in offshore accounts. They don't recircle it. They don't recycle it back in the economy. Billionaires take their money and put it in offshore accounts. They don't recycle it in the economy. Working class people recycle money in the economy. That's why tax breaks to working class people.
That's why he wanted that 100%. Offshore investment to be able to come back into the national opportunity zones and come into local investment.
I'd rather put the money in the pockets of the American people, because then they're going to take and buy goods and services, which boost the economy.
Right.
That's what a national economy is, Hakeem. I'm not saying that you're wrong in your economic theory, but
I don't have a theory. I'm just telling you what happens as fact.
And
that's
actually,
theory. That's fact.
But don't we want it directed?
I'm not an economist, bro. I'm not an economist. I don't even want to.
What you were talking about was Reaganomics, that was tried in the 80s.
Trickle down.
Right? It's trickle down economics. If you give tax breaks to really rich people, they'll build, they'll do all this stuff, and it'll come back, right? There are diminishing rewards to that. That has been proven false over time. You just create massively rich people who are richer than there ever have been in the history of the planet. They are not giving that money back. They should be taxed at a higher rate so that money can be redistributed downward, right? That there are limits to that, but trust, we're not even close, right? Because we're not even close. Like what you were talking about, nobody believes anymore because it hasn't worked. We know that Trump is doing that so that he will benefit from it, and people he knows will benefit from it. It has nothing to do with you, man. Nothing. Sorry, he's shaking you.
So more jobs coming to Newark and East Orange, and offshore money coming back into the country. You're saying that's a bad thing?
Why send money offshore when we can?
We got new corporations coming into Newark.
No, that's not because of Trump. Like, that's not because of Trump tax cuts.
No.
There are incentives, right, for stuff to happen that happens at a state level and a local level, right, as well, to make the environment good and to court specific corporations. But the Trump tax cuts have just led to the gap between rich and poor is higher than it's ever been in the history of the world, right? Like, and that is because of the taxes they pay are disproportionately less than the money that they're making. Them getting these tax breaks have not generated into lifting all boats, right? That's not happening from the tax cuts. There are a lot of other incentives that can lead people to invest money, right? That have been pushed, that get pushed, right? But taking taxes off of rich people isn't it.
Can I give you
I
a
think
great
it's important to
example?
remember too, because sometimes we forget the fact that there hasn't always been a real middle class.
Thank you.
The middle class came about
Thank
because
you. That's where I was going.
of largely FDR, Franklin
That's
Delano
where I was going.
Roosevelt, right? Support of unions, better wages, all of that. There were structures that put into place to actually build a middle class.
The New Deal policies
And so what I'm hearing from Kamala Harris is the same kind of mindset where
Yes.
she's focused on, look, and it's not that she's ignoring people in the lower class, poor class, but she wants to bring more people into the middle class, number
Yes.
one, with better wages. And so when you build a middle class, that happens organically.
Well, to your point, Annette, the happy days of the 50s, we call them the happy days because white America was doing so great. We got to be white America was doing so great because the New Deal policies of FDR caused investment, and the corporate tax rate at the time was at like 60%, 60, 70%. Now it's at what, 21%. Ronald Reagan chipping away at the corporate tax rate, giving them tax breaks, lowered it down. Anyway, so yeah, to your point, you're exactly right. Raising taxes on the billionaires and the corporations, lowering taxes on the middle and poor class is what creates investment and gives us more the happy days that we're looking for.
And honestly, in all this,
and this time it'll be more inclusive of everybody, not just white people.
Not white people.
But I think, but here's the thing, right? I think if this election was only about economic policy, then I wouldn't be as hyped, right? Like, well, 4 years isn't going to make a big difference if it's only economic policy. It's just that, like, I don't get Trump's appeal. He's just not serious. Like, I listened to him as a candidate. He sounds crazy, and like what he says, and I'm just like, why would I have that? He lied about losing an election, which is dangerous, right? Like, people can get murdered based on that. Like, people did get murdered based on that. Why would you trust him to run again? Aren't you scared that there's probably going to be like potential political violence after that? Like, I don't get it, right? So yeah, like when we're talking about economic policy, yeah, that's great, but that's like old school Republicans talking about economic policy and supply side economics, right? But Trump ain't that. Like, the reason why so many different Republicans are like going no isn't because of supply side economics. They're down with that, right? And so they're making their arguments about rich, whatever. But they know this dude is just insane. And they like the country enough or love the country enough to be like, my country above my party, because my party just lost its mind. And when you, and I don't know how people listen to, I really think it's a matter of they look at the reaction that we have to like, this dude is crazy, and they like the reaction that we have. And they're like, yo, Trump makes them crazy. We don't like them. That's great. And I don't think it's any deeper than that for many of the voters, right? It's like we are disenfranchised, or we feel mad, or we feel aggrieved, or whatever is going on, right? But we really just dislike y'all. We really just have no, like, maybe that's not fully true. I don't know. But I think the reason why the reaction that we're having isn't because it's Mitt Romney running, right? We weren't having this conversation about Mitt Romney. We weren't having this conversation about John McCain. We were like, we like Obama better. We like him better on policies and the courts, right? Yeah. Like, we don't want the courts to be conservative for whatever. But it really came down to the courts and specific policies that we liked better. And Romney wasn't scary, right? He was irritating. And, and you didn't like his policies. McCain wasn't scary. He was like potentially reasonable on some things, maybe unreasonable on others, but those were debates that we had back and forth. Trump is a clown. Like those other men were like serious. He's not serious. Like dude is a clown with a bomb.
No, Republicans are embarrassed. I mean, real Republicans, the MAGA crew. Real Republicans are embarrassed because, and that's why you have so many people talking about they're not voting for him. They're voting for. They are embarrassed. They're talking about starting their own party, starting another party. You know, I mean, it's insane. I mean, because not only is Trump, he's really not a Republican.
No,
he's pro-life now.
He's not a Republican.
Pro-life.
Barely an American.
He's still following him.
I mean, when I say barely an American,
he's pro-choice now.
What was that?
I said Trump is pro-choice now. The pro-life people
yeah.
They got.
He's like, that pro-choice, that pro-choice stuff looks good right now. The pro-choice, like I know what I did. You know, the Roe v. Wade, the judges. I did that. True. But now
I got you what you want. Now we're gonna let the people decide.
If people are pro-choice, let them be pro-choice. If they're pro-life, let them be pro-life.
IVF for everybody. Free IVF. We're gonna make IVF free.
Right. He is like a dancing clown, and I wouldn't say this about Romney. Didn't say that about Romney. Wouldn't say that about McCain. Didn't say that about McCain. The Republicans who are like,
the man was compromised. There's P tapes out there. Putin got him under the joint, and he got to ride this till the wheels fall off. And when they're done with him, they're gonna be done with him.
Right.
Now, when Trump's done, when it's done, it's over. When he served his purpose, or there's no other purpose to serve, it's gonna be bad for him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that he is doing whatever he needs to do right now, but I think it's really going to be bad for a lot of the people who supported him, right? Because at the end of the day, like all the people who supported Joe McCarthy are people who like, when you look back in history and you're like, why did they support this clown, right? Like, what they got with the clown, right? And I use the word clown because I do think he functions like if those of you who are into comic books, I think Trump serves like a version of the Joker, right? Because he is not serious, but he does seriously play on human nature, right? He is not a serious individual in what he wants, but he does know a certain segment of people who are pushed by fear and greed and the worst parts of human nature, and he knows how to play it, right? So, like, he literally is a ringmaster, an entertainer, a clown who is just like, right. He is the person making the announcement, getting the dough, leaving the suckers behind, right? And right now is one last grift he's trying to do.
Yep.
Is
Can we talk about 24 hours?
Friend still on? I forgot his name. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. What?
No, he bounced. He tapped out.
We were late. I mean, we went way over time. And Che, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. Right, we want to have you back. Like we talk. Right,
thank
like again. I like having people on who have opinions that I don't necessarily agree with, and I think that's constructive. I learn from it. If nothing else, right? Like, well, what are the sentiments of the other side? What is the thinking that goes into it, right? Like,
I'm hoping he considers the other Republicans, like the true Republicans that said,
which he seems to be more of one, right? Like he seems more like an old school Republican than a MAGA Republican. Like he says he's been a Republican for 20 years, right? Like, so it seems like there are certain things that he likes, but I think that Trump is just a different animal.
I will always tell people I voted Republican one time in my life. I did.
Was it Kane?
Yes, Governor.
Me too.
Kane. Me too. I voted for him because Kane did something that the New Jersey Democrats did not have the spine to do, and I knew they did not. And that was
raise teacher pay.
What was that?
Raise teacher pay?
No, well, no, he had no. That was
because
cool
he did.
too. Yes, he did. In fact, I had just become a teacher. My salary went from 1,600 to what 16,000 to 18,000 that year. So 18,500 actually. So I was a happy camper. Then it was a long time ago. Okay.
Wasn't Florio though? Wasn't Governor Florio?
That was Kane. Kane did that. Kane did
And
that.
what else did Kane
I was cool with Kane, but that was the reason why.
Florio wanted
because he divested, because he decided to divest. And they yes, the apartheid. He that's why I voted for him. I think that's why you did too.
Florio had the Quality Education Act and wanted to redirect millions, if not billions of dollars of tax money to urban school districts, and the Republicans quickly removed him.
Yes, that Florio did that. True.
Yes.
But with Kane really did, he did something else that I really liked, right? He did a form of welfare reform where an education reform where if you were on public assistance, you would go to college for free. And you would get your whole college diploma for free, no matter where you went.
That's nice.
So I knew somebody who, had a kid at 19, was able to get public assistance and literally go to Yale for free, paid for by the government. And the government got his tax money back because you create a high-paying, tax-paying person who was able to give money back, right? So it's not like the money wasn't given back into the economy. And it was a great policy, and the Republican was doing that. The Democrat wasn't talking about it. The second time I voted Republican in my life was in Connecticut, and there was a new dude. There was a Republican senator. There's a Republican senator who was very left-leaning, right? And he later became a governor of Connecticut. But he supported the different things that I supported, and was there on the policy. And I looked at the Democrat who's running against him, and the Democrat, and all the literature side by side, the Democrat was to the right of the Republican, and he was running to the right of the Republican.
Right, so
I'm like, you can't trust, and I was like, you can't trust the Democrat running to the right of the Republican like that.
Republican, and it's really about progressive and conservative.
Exactly.
Right, and guess who that Republican was? I mean, guess who that Democrat was who I voted against? Just by looking at the literature, talking to the candidates, and knowing that the candidate that was the Republican candidate was the one that spot on was progressive on both domestic issues and foreign policy issues. He was considered a maverick, and was like, would buck Republican policy often. The Democrat was like, I'll be more Republican than Republican. And I was like, hell no. Joe Lieberman.
Yeah. Well, that's why Joe Lieberman is a Republican.
So that was the first time he ran. It was the first, so no one knew who Joe Lieberman was.
He's a conservative.
But it was like this dude versus Joe Lieberman. I'm like, why are Democrats canvassing and working hard for them? These are people I knew who were like they were to the left of me, and they were working for the Democrats, and they were like, we're getting the Democrat elected. And I'm like, we've been having all these conversations about accountability. So why are you voting for this dude?
Because you got to check the temperature of the nation. White supremacy still rules this country, period, point blank.
Right.
All right. And in order for certain candidates in certain districts to win elections, they have to pander to the presiding sentiment of that electoral body, right? So, if you think you're going to be a Democrat and be super progressive, I'm from black or brown people, and you need white people to vote for you, white people ain't going to vote for you. So you could make that stance. You could stand on that, but are you going to get in? Not to say that Joe Lieberman was going, once he got in, he was going to switch over. Nah, because you check his record.
Didn't. Right.
He tends to be conservative.
He was who he was, right?
He was who he was. And that's why we get into conservative.
He came out against Gore, came out against Obama.
Versus Republican.
No, I take it back.
Democrat.
He did not come out against Gore. He came out against Clinton, and I think Gore, he was
exactly.
Gore's vice president.
Yeah,
right. He came out against Clinton. He was Gore's vice president.
You get like people like Joe Manchin, who's he's a moderate, a Democrat, but he's a moderate. No, he's a conservative because West Virginia. If you want, you want to win, you better make these white folks happy. If you want that vote, if you try to stand on some type of progressive principle, not to say Joe Manchin would ever do that. But if you try to stand on that, you're not gonna win that. You're not gonna get that district.
Right. And I do not begrudge Joe Manchin anything. He was in West Virginia. He ran as a Democrat in West Virginia and won. That's a powerful thing. You do what you got to do, Manchin. Do what you got to do. I always said, you were in a red state.
Most of the time,
right.
When it came to those line items, most of the time he was not a problem, but
right.
there were those problems.
Yeah. But a lot of our folks who are leaning toward that, one of the names that comes up often is Dr. Claude Anderson. Right.
Well, we are going to shift. We are going to shift into, because we have 15 minutes left. I want to get into 24 hours apiece. I'm going to bring Che back. Che just popped in. Hey, Che, we actually are ending this segment and we're jumping into 24 hours apiece because we only have 15 minutes left.
Okay.
We were supposed to be showing a rerun tonight and rebroadcasting our July 5th show. So those of you who did not see our July 5th show, by the way, Che, you have a lot of background noise in the back. I'm just putting you on mute right now. There's a lot of background noise in the back that's just coming over. But our July 5th show was an incredible show, right? In our July 5th show at the 7 p.m. hour, we had the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and he talked about the devastation of Hurricane Beryl, climate change, and we were joined by Josie Gonsalves, an incredible journalist from Public Square Amplified. She produced the interview, as in like she's the one who arranged everything. She's the one who had put all that together. So big shout out to Josie Gonsalves for doing that. And I suggest people go to the July 5th show to watch it because we do need to talk more about climate change. We don't talk enough about it. It's not as big of a deal to people, to voters, when it should be. Trump says climate change, not really a big deal, right? But we know that there are whole countries that are being devastated by it. So check out our July 5th show, where at the 7 p.m. hour, where the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is on, talking about it. It's just a fascinating interview because he's really just talking about not needing help for anything else but the United States recognizing that it is part of the cause of climate change and to get a different relationship with capitalism. I absolutely recommend going back and watching that.
Hey,
Che,
John,
you're back? Yes.
Yeah, as you wrap it up, I heard good points around, and there's a lot more to unpack. I just wanted to say we have to the black voters that are decided if they're going to go Harris or Trump, the black Trump supporters, we're looking at more so the local table issues of, is it more affordable today than it was 4 years ago? Is the neighborhoods going to be safe? Are we going to still get good representation from the federal level so we avoid a World War III and we protect the country that we have known since the end of the Civil War, for us to be able to have equal opportunities in this country and to not have to have an oppressive federal government overreaching on the people's rights. That's mainly our main stuff. And the 47 million residents that are Black Americans in this country, for us to be able to have a viable path forward. That's what this is about. And we want to leverage our power and balance our power for fair representation.
Based on everything you just said, it sounds like you're voting for Harris.
Well, no, I mean we're trying to end this now. We're trying not to go back.
We're warming up for a Newark versus Trump versus Team Newark versus Harris debate. So I'll keep y'all certainly informed on how that works out, and we'll put our best case before the Newark public. Newark is highly Democratic state, but the issues are national issues that will impact our classrooms and our communities after the election.
I think for me, Jay, I think the most important thing, answer that question, right? Your man lied, instigated violence. That is something that is beyond the pale. It's not normally Republican, Democrat. It's not a normal candidate. It's not normal, right? It's not McCain. It's not Romney, right? Like literally, he put us on the verge of civil war. And that, I think, is ultimately what has to be answered. And if you concentrate on that, Because if there's violence in the streets, the economy is going to suck worse, right? If you are trying to lie about an election, imagine if that stuff goes and what effect that would have on us, right? So, I I'm very unconvinced, right? Like as in on a very basic level, and it's not like I've never voted Republican before. This is a different dude, and I think this do your due diligence, listen to his words, right? Right? Just listen to his words and let me know if that makes sense to you, right? But we want to get into 24 hours apiece, right? I know we don't have much time left, and we're having a good conversation. And Che, thank you, right, for coming out, being a part of it. We appreciate it a lot, actually.
All right, I'll see y'all again before Election Day, and we'll
All right, absolutely.
unpack these issues
Absolutely.
again, Hakim. I'm gonna check those econ stats you put up there, Hakim. Stay up, Hakim, Annette,
Yes,
and John,
sir.
and listeners.
All right, yeah, you too, man. All right, so 24 hours apiece.
Yeah, man.
Podcast.
24 hours apiece was off the chain.
Another successful year.
Best one yet. All women line up. All women line up. Say black men don't support women. That's a lie. Lie. Honorable Mayor Roz Baraka, Team Baraka, the great city of Newark, New Jersey. We support our women. We honor our women. We seek to elevate we have some powerful women leadership in the city. Deputy Mayor Keisha Yuri, Director Kalisha Wingfield Hill, Dawn Haynes, everybody else. Susu Stewart, our production coordinator. She runs our stage, lighting, logistics. There's a woman that does that every single year. So all this battle of the sexes, gender, let's cut that. Let's dead it. Let's get over that. We honor and celebrate our women. We had an all-female lineup. Lady Luck, Lady of Rage, Yo-Yo, Moni Love, Sunshine Anderson, Roxanne, Shantae, Maya, the Baddies, Biggie and Tasiki, Lola Brooke, Juicy 2 times, Lady London, Honey Baby. Local talent was off the chain. We had this violinist, Bree Black. Oh my God. Violinist came out with the hip hop violin. Oh my God, it was incredible. We had Aisha Truth from Avon Avenue. We had She Bee's Music. We had Angel Blue. We had Queen Blue Nile. We had Monique the Star. We had, it's too many to name. All I gotta do is go on social media, the IG, 24 hours apiece, 24HRS of peace. You see what it is. There it is right there. Go to the IG, the City of Newark Facebook page, IG page. Go there and see the content. It's phenomenal. Big shout out to the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery, Brick City Peace Collective, all the other subsidiary organizations, Newark Anti-Violence Coalition, of course. The best one yet. When you see the crowd, you're talking about 20,000 people on Central Avenue between South 10th and West Market. Georgia King Village had their own little party going on where they was at. They was doing their thing just on their own, having a great time. The Exxon gas station had their own little party doing their thing. Over 175 vendors came out. Everybody sold out, made money. Health and Wellness, Nikki D, who performed on Friday night, but leads our health and wellness segment every year. Physical Fitness with Nikki D. Jennifer Cole leading up yoga, Lotus Yoga Operation. That was from 8 to 10 in the morning, Saturday morning. Fed over 150 seniors. There you go. Thank you, John. Fed over 150 seniors. Senior breakfast, gospel ensemble. It was amazing. It was like I'm so proud of the vision manifesting itself into this wonderful event. 24 hours apiece. 2024 was absolutely magnificent. If you wasn't there, you missed it. Just make sure you put next year's date on the calendar because you don't want to miss that one. This was awesome.
When is next year's date?
We ain't figured it out yet. Got to tap in.
All right, now is there
so
more?
It's sometime in August. We'll figure it out and let y'all know.
Now, 24 hours apiece has been getting national attention since like at least the last few years, right? And I remember last year it was on Labor Day. I was on Labor Day weekend, and it was on Labor Day weekend, all over the country, violence spiked, except
Not
for
Newark,
Newark.
New Jersey,
There was zero
though.
violence, right?
Yeah.
Did you think about, are you thinking about putting it back on Labor Day weekend next year? Like, as in it being
I follow the lead of the Honorable Mayor Ras Baraka, of course, Chief of Staff of Miri Baraka, co-founder of 24 Hours of Peace. Wherever and whenever it is necessary to do this is when we will do it. We try to highlight the community that's experienced a spike in violence, a spike in crime, the community that needs it. We put 24 Hours of Peace on the block right there. So we're going to figure out when's the best time, where's the best place, and that's what we'll execute it. And we'll keep the spirit of peace, love, unity, and safely having fun going. And Newark, New Jersey will lead the nation in how to do real hip hop. Peace, love, unity, safely having fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. That madism.
Yeah, bro. It was amazing. Annette, you were there, right?
I live in Georgia.
Oh,
I missed it. But you know what?
We're gonna bring it down to Atlanta, right? Joey gonna bring it to Georgia.
There you go. We got to do that.
Right.
And then also, I mean, it would be great if we could expand it. 24 hours of peace, and then, somewhere down the line, 48 hours of peace.
So listen.
72 hours.
Kim's like, do you realize how much work that 24 hours was? You ain't even show up. Wow.
Look, exactly.
I would fly there. I would.
Here's the deal. This is what we're doing. The Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery and the Brick City Peace Collective, they do activations year round. To your point. So the concert festival is a commercial for the work that they do year round. But 24 Hours of Peace has a workshop series called Build Your Skills, where we use hip hop culture to do two things: teach critical thinking and conflict resolution skills, and also as a way to identify transferable skills that these young people already have. So that helps us to increase the peace, help these young people find peace within themselves, how to communicate and interact with each other, organize, most importantly. And that's how we stretch the 24 Hours of Peace over the course of 365 days. But in terms of the concert festival,
I like that.
24 hours is it's just what it is. Yeah. Now, mind you, myself and Chief Baraka are hosting the entire 24 hours. I get like 4 hours sleep.
Oh wow!
Right. Man can't live on 4 hours. 4 hours of sleep a day. So 24 hours.
But I like hearing all the other activities that you're doing throughout the year. This is just a culmination. It sounds like of what you're working on throughout the year.
Yeah, and the mayor has
communities,
a whole summer worth of activities, from spoken word to just on the ground, hands-on activities all summer long. Peace Week, of course, is the week leading up to 24 Hours of Peace. So, it's not just the 24 hours. That's just the culmination of the entire
Peace Week was actually pretty, like, when they started doing Peace Week, I was like, that's very cool, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I think that part of it is, and you could tell me, like, why Peace Week? Why 24 Hours of Peace? You're saying that it's an advertisement for something more. What is it an advertisement for?
Arts and culture, as the great Amiri Baraka Sr. has taught us, can be used as a tool, used as a weapon. And we know the power of hip hop culture. So when you put hip hop out on the block, young people readily see themselves, recognize themselves, want to see themselves in it. And then we can feed them. You take the medicine and you put it in the candy. The entertainment, and the performances, the rap, that's just the candy. But you put these other activations on the ground, and you expose the community to things they weren't thinking about, save for 24 Hours of Peace. So that's why we do this. That's why we do the Peace Week. That's why we do the summer of fun. It's not just, these kids need something to do. They need to be engaged. They leave school, they're out on the block. They don't, if they're not working, and what are they doing with their time? Well, if we can have these activities go on, things that they can relate to, where the best way to learn is by having fun. I don't know if you know that. That's a
Right, that makes
fact.
sense.
That's a
absolutely.
fact. So when you talk about the summer of fun, we can create these activities that engage young people by having fun. We can teach them, things that they can carry with them throughout the rest of the school year.
As a teacher for 32 years, that was it. We had to find creative ways for children to have fun so that you could learn what we were trying to teach them.
That's
So
right.
yeah, I spent many an hour creating games and things for kids to actually interact with.
Yes.
So yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are. I really do appreciate what you do, and I appreciate the coming out. I want to thank everybody who was on today. Thank our guest. Again, we have a great July 5th show that we're going to show as after that first hour, and that was with the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Excellent.
I'm sorry.
That was an excellent show. Yeah.
Oh yeah, really like that. And again, big shout out to Josie Gonsalves
We'll see.
for putting all that together because that was an excellent show. I learned a lot. I learned about how devastating it not just it was, but that all over the world we're seen as the problem, right? Like, and it's like what you do, how you consume, the way you're not dealing with climate change is affecting the rest of the planet. And you have a leader of a nation being like, look, get it right. Get the stuff right with so you can do well in the rest of the world.
The president of St. Vincent is Josie Gonsalves' cousin.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
She set it all up. I mean, she was like, hey, let's do it. And I was like, yes, absolutely. And so that's what I said. I very much appreciated that. And that's why I've been giving her shout out after shout out after shout out, right? Because she is an excellent journalist. She is does the thing with Public Square, that space that she has, and was very generous in terms of the reach out. So
yeah, if you
I'm
haven't
gonna keep
checked out
shouting her
those
out.
stories on
Keep
Public
shouting her out.
Square, definitely check her site out. They're wonderful stories, well written, and she's training up young people to become journalists and really move the world in media. So
Yep.
Hey guys, I gotta
We're
jump.
definitely. I'm sorry.
I gotta jump.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Hakim. Hakim,
Yep.
thank you for coming out tonight. We really
Yep.
valued all of your input, man. It was great.
Great show.
And
Great
thank you
show.
thank you for doing 24 hours a piece.
Oh,
We know you got a lot of help, right? But we know that you really did. I mean, this was your baby for years coming up, and what you did, hearing about what you were doing, and just jumping in and trying to add that spirit of hip hop. Very much appreciated what you do too, man.
Peace, y'all.
All right, peace. All right, until next week. That's All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop talk show. Peace.